All right, looks good. So you were talking about how you're going to pay me all of my money. Like you pay me like $1,000 now, right? Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly right. In
Yeah.
fact, it's going to be 1,200.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And so that money is coming directly from me. I'm going to pay everyone else as well.
Yeah. For undisclosed services.
Yeah, and I don't know if we planned on time stamping this one for
Yeah.
someone that may find it in the distant future. But
Oh,
we're in
don't worry,
pinned
don't worry.
secret.
It's the very first few seconds of the video, so now everyone's going to see this first because we're live now. So,
Perfect. Perfect.
uh, so
Okay.
Aaron, how do you go by Aaron? Because I know Aaron likes Aaron, and it's really annoying. What do you like to go by?
Okay. I mean, Aaron is my actual name. So I do go by Aaron. The Aaron Aquinas is just kind of this sort of pseudonym that most YouTubers use because it's just I'm not even a big Thomas Aquinas fan. It's just like the alliteration sounded good. My brother suggested. I'm like, all right, what?
Yeah.
So then that's the end of that story.
Awesome, awesome. It's a good, epic, long story, conclusion,
Yep.
climax.
I got in a whole novel about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just Aaron. I mean, it's actually my middle name. My parents chose to call me I'm one of those kids that they roll call Robert. I'm like, well, it's actually Aaron because Robert's my first name, and
Oh,
I don't.
I actually just recently watched a thing on Skyrim, like the 10 things craziest people did, and the Skyrim people when they released it on 11/11/11 actually said if someone named their kid Dovahkiin, if it was born on 11/11/11, they just give them all of the games from Bethesda for the rest of their life, and someone actually did that. So there's some kid named Dovahkiin who was born on 11/11/11 and now gets all of Bethesda's games for free for the rest of his life.
Well, it's cool that they actually did it.
Yeah, it's
I haven't
ridiculous.
heard of that. That's really cool.
So, Aaron, thanks for coming on. I think you actually reached out to me, didn't you?
Yeah, we were on some thread on Twitter. I think it was Cameron's thread, and you were offering it to someone else. And I'm like, hey, that sounds cool. And that's the end
Cool,
of that story.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, these stories are like the greatest stories ever. Just,
Right. I'm a great storyteller,
yeah.
as you guys will learn.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Uh, yes. I don't think there's like a whole lot to tell. I'm no PhD. I haven't published anything. I recently got into the like social media YouTube community on the like atheism theism discussion because I think it's interesting, and I've recently discovered you, and you're one of the better content out there. There is actually a lot of good producers out there, and they're starting to gain traction. It seems to me that the smaller channels are more interesting, but interesting, I guess, is subjective. But they're more interesting to me because they're not as clickbaity. They're not as like polished to be just a quick grab video, which I mean, I get. Like that's a lot of people don't have time to sit down for an hour or two and listen to something, so I get it. That's something I like, and I consider myself a theist, even though a lot of what I say over the course of our talk might, I mean, maybe doesn't sound traditional theism, but I think it is. It's just a kind of a different use of vocabulary and how we explain our concepts. I do think that a lot of them are the same. So I guess I consider myself a sort of classical theist. Um, I mean, there's really not much else to me. I mean, I'm also a gamer. I know you game. I don't know what games you play though. So it's something I meant to ask you is like, what all games do you play?
Right now, I'm playing Neo 2.
I don't know what that is. Is it a competitive game?
No,
Is it
it's
more
like
of a one player?
do you know Dark Souls?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's something like that.
It's
No.
it's a harder version of Dark Souls, Japanese style.
I've never played Dark Souls, but I have played the very Lovecraftian one. I can't remember what it's called. From the PS4. What's it called?
There's Bloodborne.
Bloodborne. That's it. I've played that one, and it has a very Dark Souls vibe. I don't know if it's made by the same people. I'm
Yeah,
assuming
it
it
is.
probably is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
I figured it was. I watched people in college dorms play Dark Souls a lot, but I never actually like, picked it up and played it myself.
Yeah, I've always been into hard games. The harder, the better, because I that's kind of what I find interesting is trying to beat the hard ones. Dark Souls is actually really easy. People call it hard because it's hard for the normies.
Beginners. Yeah, the normies.
So, but yeah, it's really not that hard. There's a lot harder games out there. Cloudberry Kingdom is just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it must be pretty difficult. I mean, I've never even heard of it, so the,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
number of people that play it successfully must be low.
I think 20 total people have all the trophies in the game, like in the world.
Ugh. So the only game that I've completed all the way through, did all the things in, because I usually don't play those kind of games, was Resident Evil 4. The other game was just cool. I liked it. And then I picked up, because it was way different than the other Resident Evils before it in its style and the way the camera moved. So I picked up Resident Evil 0, and that game is way harder. And that wasn't even a hard game on the like hard scale.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, these games aren't for me. And then I played some competitive games, but that's really about it. Oh, I almost got everything in Donkey Kong 64. I had 2 blueprints left and 1 gold banana left, and then my little toddler cousin deleted the file. So that was fun. Like way back when that was a thing on Nintendo 64.
Yeah. So, to jump it right in, why I am an atheist, by which I mean I don't believe there's any reason to believe in a God. I think that everything can be better answered by naturalistic explanations. Why do you believe in a God? Do you have any reasons or arguments or anything?
So I thought about this question and how I might approach it. And I mean, typically you want to give a reason why you believe something. So they usually give arguments, like natural theology arguments. And I find the bulk of them persuasive myself, but something I said in another talk I had with the street epistemologist guy, I don't think theism is compelling. Like, and by compelling, I mean, I don't think it will compel belief against all other measures, like I think most things in science probably do. So I don't think theism is compelling in that sense. I think it can be reasonable to believe it's true. And an analogy I recently came up with or figured out I think would be reasonably appropriate is extraterrestrial life. Like, we don't have any like hard empirical data that it is there, but it's pretty reasonable to believe it is there. So I think theism can be like that, although I don't think it's necessary to believe it is. And I definitely don't think it's compelling.
Okay, so I'm fine with just any standard of evidence. It doesn't need to be scientific empirical proof. But what evidence is just any way to differentiate, is it imaginary from is it real? It doesn't have to do with 100% certainty. Just give us a reason to believe that this thing, whatever we're talking about, is not an imaginary thing. So if you think any of the arguments can do that, because I don't think any of them do that. I don't think any of the standards of evidence for Christianity can differentiate, is this an imaginary thing from is this a real thing? So that's my position. Do you think that any of them can do that?
Well, so I mean, I think so. And how I see that might be different than you, but getting to like Christian theism is a whole other large step of premises to adopt. So I think that.
All right, yeah, I'm just talking about any God in general. I don't particular theism. I usually don't go into because my goal is just to eliminate the entire concept of a God as nothing more than like a fairy tale, like leprechauns or unicorns. That's kind of how I see it. So I don't go specifically and ask for evidence of a particular kind of a God. That's usually not something I'm as interested in, because if I can just get rid of the idea of God as an entire concept, well, it doesn't really matter which one you believe in.
Yeah, and obviously the idea that's being adopted that we call God can not only differ from cultures and religions, but even person to person. But I think there's at least how I see theism, at least generally speaking, not necessarily like a sort of religious tradition, is how they're understanding the concept in whatever capacity they have, or whether how limited that might be. Because that's clearly true in several other phenomena and other forms of knowledge that we have, especially as it gets more sophisticated. Like, clearly we understood what light was in a very rudimentary sense without understanding the physics of light. Right. And I think people, although they have maybe a much more anthropomorphized version of what we would call God, especially with very human characteristics, can be describing something that is a real feature of the world on a more fundamental level. And so that's how I kind of see theism, classical theism in a sense. But Christian propositions are obviously something you add on to that. So that, I mean, I'm not going to like shy away from it. I'll answer the question. I believe in the essential truth claims of Christianity, but I don't know if I'd classify as a fundamentalist Christian or anything like that.
Okay, does God have a brain, a mind of some kind?
Well, I definitely don't think God has a brain in the sense, right. except for maybe in the sort of incarnation sense that Christians believe about Jesus.
Oh, yeah, that was my habits of, because I don't think mind is a thing. Does God have a mind?
Well, I mean, so I could say yes. I mean, that's a pretty classical theistic response, but I think how we understand the word mind in this context might differ, because I think you probably see the mind as an emergent property of the brain.
Well, no. So I just mean, like, is it conscious? Does it have thoughts and intentions and motivations? Can it know things? Can it respond? Can it interact? Or is it like just a platonic inanimate object?
So, I mean, my quick answer is I do believe that, but the reason I believe that and what I mean by believing that, I think might vary from that rudimentary concept of anthropomorphizing our properties of a brain and a consciousness and stuff like that. And I'm not talking in a pantheistic sense where it's just like, it's just synonymous with ultimate reality. I think it's meaningful to make that distinction, but my short answer is yes. I do think those things would be reasonable to believe about what we consider this ultimate reality that we're calling God, or whatever the theist is calling it.
So there, because you mentioned pantheism. Pantheism is a great example of just essentially an eternal, all-powerful nature with no mind of any kind. It's just unguided natural processes all the way down, essentially. So why do you think there is a mind as opposed to unguided natural processes all the way down?
Well, here's how I think. Here's how I think the question you're asking. Here's how I'm understanding it. Why would it be appropriate or useful to call it conscious or having a mind? Like, it's not that I think it, like, okay, this thing is here, and then I have other evidence that like it has this extra property. I mean, that's one way to think about it. But I think it's like, why describe the phenomenon that we are inferring to as being conscious? Like, why would that be an appropriate description of what I believe is real? And I think the properties that we're inferring from this, I believe, can be reasonable to infer from our own experience of what we consider to be a mind. And I don't mean that as a purely emergent property of the brain, because I think that's also a true fact we could use to describe it. But that'll come down to what we consider the essential properties of a mind. Because if in advance the essential properties of the mind is a brain, then just in advance it can't have a mind. So if that's what we're defining as a mind, then I would agree with you. It doesn't have a mind. I just don't think that's the essential property of a mind, is a brain.
Right, right. So, but it is conscious. That's the essential property of a mind is consciousness. It has to have consciousness.
Yeah, well, I think the word mind. I don't even know if I want to say God has a mind. I mean, that's one way to, that's one vocabulary you can use. But I think God being conscious or God being personal would be just as a true description. I mean, you can say those are synonymous. I think having a mind has other connotations to it, but I think the essential properties of personhood would involve consciousness, intentionality, volitions or a will, rationality, things like that.
Right, right. So, like, there's different.
I think it could be, and this isn't an argument yet so much, but explain what I believe. I think it could be. I think it's reasonable to believe that the sort of ultimate metaphysical reality, whatever we're calling it, it would be reasonable to describe these properties to that. I think it could be considered. Right, I wouldn't say it's compelling, but
so when we're contrasting things like pantheism, which says God and the divine are everything with no mind, to your view, you're saying that God does have a mind, as in it's conscious, as opposed to their view, which there is no consciousness there.
I would say that would be accurate.
Okay,
yeah.
Why?
Well, I think the ultimate reality that we're describing here, and which I would attribute the sort of modal necessity properties to it, I think it makes more sense to say that producing any contingent reality would make more sense on a volition than a purely sort of natural process that exists in a sort of mechanism. I think that's reasonable to believe.
How?
Well, the how question, it depends on what you mean by how. If you're asking,
you said that everything being created under a conscious volition is more likely than unguided processes, something like that.
I said it would make more sense to describe it as a volition on its essential properties of what we mean to say a volition, which is understanding that it would be the first cause of the process, than it just being a part of some pre-existing mechanical law that would just describe it necessarily happening, because otherwise it wouldn't be contingent reality. Like that's just definition.
I have no idea what you just said. So
okay,
from my perspective,
I don't want to throw word salad out.
So there's a God who has a volition, and the volition created the universe. And my position is there is reality, a natural reality. The natural reality has processes, and the processes created the universe. Why is one more likely than the other?
Well, I'm not certain what you just described is necessarily essentially different. So I'm gonna
one has consciousness, one doesn't.
Well, what you were describing was a difference of consciousness. So when you say there's a process that brought about the universe, if we're whatever we
it's just a natural process, like a law of physics, essentially a law of nature. There's no thought, no volition, no consciousness, no intentionality.
When you say a natural process, what's the difference between that and a volition?
There's
as far as you're describing.
Well, that's kind of the point, is that a natural process is an unguided natural process. Just gravity is an unguided natural process. There's no consciousness there. It's not deciding to do something. It has no volition to cause people to fall. It just does. It's just a part of what it is fundamentally.
Okay, I think we probably agree with that. So with that being, so if I'm understanding, and the reason I don't mean to answer questions with questions, but I'm wanting to make sure I'm understanding the content of your vocabulary, because I think that's one of the challenges, is having an understanding of vocabulary. When you say a natural process, I think from what you described, I would agree with. What would be a meaningful difference between, because I think there is one, you probably do too. What do you think is a meaningful difference between a natural law that's a descriptive property of, say, gravity bending space-time in a certain way where things follow the geodesic, and we consider that falling, right? So given the conditions, it's a purely natural process. There's not some agent intervention that comes in there and tinkers with it, right?
Yeah.
So what would be the difference between that and contingent reality arriving from some necessary reality? Like what's a meaningful difference there?
There wouldn't be a difference, because my argument is that there is a necessary reality. I agree there is a necessary reality, and it's just eternal and powerful nature with no mind.
Okay, so if I'm saying that I as far as the description that I just gave of a necessary reality giving rise to a contingent reality would be synonymous with a first causation, and that's what a volition is.
No.
And I'm calling, well, that's what I'm saying. So what would be a volition to you then?
A volition is intentionality. It's a mind, it's a choice, decision, consciousness doing something.
Well, so if a volition, can a volition have causal relations?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so if a volition has causal relations, what does that mean to you? What does it mean for a volition to cause something?
The volition was the precursor to the event without which would not have happened.
Okay, so that would be the true states of affairs, but what does it mean for the volition to be the cause of the effect?
The volition has to be the thing that caused the effect, without of which it would not have happened.
Make sure I'm not certain. That may have answered my question. I'm just not understanding it. So
the volition is like there's a conscious actor who makes a choice, and if that conscious actor did not make that choice, then the event would not have occurred.
There's some internal languages being used here. So the word choice and volition can be kind of synonyms.
Well, no. A volition is like intentionality. It's like I have a decision or a desire to do something. The choice is the actual action of choosing to do that thing. So volition is just an intentionality. It's a desire of some kind. And then the choice to enact that decision is not the same thing as the feeling or desire itself.
Okay, let's go with that. So what would be a choice? Does choice have causal relationships with effects?
I would say so. I mean, I think all choices are determined, so I don't think there really isn't a choice, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think this might be where a bit of a breakdown is, because like in the entire time, if choice, or how I'm using the word volition, just isn't a thing in your background information, then none of this probably makes sense of what I'm saying, or at least it doesn't seem reasonable.
Well, I can just grant it for the sake of argument. I understand the idea of volition.
So for that sake of argument, how do you understand a choice having a relationship with effects? Like, how does it cause the effect?
Magic, essentially. Like if you think there is this new kind of a thing, like a volition, and that's essentially like a force like any other, and it can do things. It's just a different kind of a force. It's just one that is related to consciousness in some way. I don't know exactly how it would do that. I just say magic essentially, but it does things in a non-physical sense, essentially. It's not a guided law of nature.
Okay, now I feel like we're making some progress. So I think you're going in the right direction. I mean, you can call it magic. I'm not as offended by that word as a lot of theists seem to be. But the point you're touching on, which I think is right, is that it's not a part of some physical structure, deterministic structure that has predictive power that you can say, because this will be this way, it'll operate, and then the effect is produced. I think that's right. And that's what I see this necessary reality being, because it's not a part of some larger structure. It's not a part of some greater deterministic mechanisms that describe what it will do. It's just necessary. And if it gives rise to something contingent, as far as we understand in our properly basic way of what we experience on our own volitions, which, I mean, we can break down in other ways to say, well, we have other reasons to believe that there aren't minds, which we can include that. But just for the sake of this, I think it's reasonable, not compelling, to believe that that same phenomenon is what we're using to describe the act of contingent reality becoming real.
Okay, so I'm still not seeing anything in there that's actually an argument for consciousness. So, because I agree there is a necessary thing. Like, absolutely. The necessary thing is just nature. It's just more nature. There's no mind there. There's no consciousness, no volition. None of that is even relevant.
Well, so using the word nature here for a second, do you believe minds are a product of nature?
Yes.
So if it was a mind, it would still be nature, right?
No, because the mind would be a product of nature. Nature is the ultimate thing, not the mind. Okay,
so what is nature?
Just essentially.
Are we just using the word nature is ultimate reality?
Yeah, I'm just using the distinction here of a mindless nature and a minded nature. So what is at the core? Is it just a mindless thing, or is it a mind thing? If it's a mindless thing, that's just naturalism, essentially. If it's a mind thing, then that's supernatural. Supernatural is essentially synonymous with a non-physical mind doing stuff. That's what it means. essentially. So if there's a non-physical mind doing stuff, that's theism, essentially. And if it's just a non-mind unguided processes, that's naturalism.
Yeah, and that's the typical dichotomy on theism naturalism debate. But I think the vocabulary is important because how we're understanding these, especially when if we're not oversimplifying it, can sometimes there's not meaningful disagreements between these words. So, for example, if you say nature is the ultimate reality, and that's the word we're describing this necessarily existing thing that just is true in all possible worlds, and then the contingent facts may differ. We might not be disagreeing on what is real about that. We're just calling it something different.
Right. So
And so
again, the difference is always going to be consciousness. On the
So at what
naturalistic
point
view,
is
there
it
is
appropriate to
no
say that?
consciousness.
Yeah, at what point would it be appropriate to use the descriptions that we find essential properties with consciousness, mind, volition, etc.? And what I see as the essential properties of those things, based on what we consider ourselves a person, and there's probably a breakdown here between how we understand this about ourselves, but I see that those essential properties also applying in the circumstances between the necessary,
How?
and the contingent reality. Well, the first one I explained is the first causation of contingent reality being described by what I explained as volition.
Well, that's why I said, how is that described by volition and not just natural processes, no volition? Like, what's the difference?
So,
Why do you
what
think
I'm
volition?
describing as volition as the essential property of volition, because there's other properties. The essential property being that it is a first cause in the causal chain, the absolute first cause in the causal chain.
That's begging the question. So you do not need volition to be a first cause in the causal chain. You can have just pure natural processes do that.
So I could say okay, but I think we're just calling the same thing by
No.
different
So there's no mind here. So in my view, there's no mind. It can do it without any kind of a mind.
And this is why when I mentioned pantheism earlier, I think that we're just describing the same things with different words.
No, because there's no mind. Again, so you said there's a mind, I say there's no mind, so they cannot be the same thing.
But we're not using the word mind the same way. Like that matters. Like, I mean, you can say there's no mind.
What do you mean? I'm granting your definition of mind here. So mind is in being personal and being able to interact and believe things and have thoughts.
Well, I only gave, I'm only giving. I guess you can bunch them together. So when I say the essential property of a mind is a will or a volition, having a volition, being able to have a volition, and I'm saying that that's a volition, then it just follow that it's a mind, or it has mental properties. I guess you could say having a mind. Like I said, there's connotations to that I think we're acquainted with ourselves having minds.
Right. So gravity does not have a volition; it just acts.
Yeah, I'll agree.
So the first cause could just be like that. There's no need for any volition.
Okay, so let's break that down then. So explain that to me. I'm not sure I'm understanding.
The first cause in a causal chain could just be a natural thing like gravity. There's no need for a volition.
Well, if I'm just defining that to be a volition, what's the difference?
If you're just defining it as a volition, it just becomes ambiguous and meaningless. It just does nothing.
I mean, there's meaning to that. A volition is that which is the first cause of a causal chain. So if that's the definition of a volition, at least the essential property,
then that would not be evidence of a mind because that definition doesn't tell you whether it's minded or not minded.
Okay, so what if when I say mind, that's what I mean by mind?
Well, then you're not answering the question because my question is why do we believe it has consciousness as opposed to not consciousness? Because you can just use whatever words you want, say it's a blah, 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 but it doesn't tell us, that doesn't give us any reason to believe in theism as opposed to naturalism.
Well, okay, are you granting it then, just make sure I'm understanding we're on the same page, that there is a first cause from this necessary reality to the contingent reality?
Sure.
Okay, sure. So what I'm saying is I think that's an essential property of what a volition is. And I think a volition is the essential property of a mind or consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so that's just defining mind and volition as being the first cause. But that doesn't, again, so my question is why should we believe in naturalism over theism? If we just want to define those things as volition and cause, well, it doesn't give us any reason to believe theism or naturalism because we're just defining whatever the first cause is to be these words. It doesn't actually give us any evidence that one is a conscious entity and one is just natural non-conscious entity.
I'm trying to get to the root of what is meant by the things that are explained by, I think, in good faith, explained by most theists that are using more rudimentary vocabulary. Because, like I mentioned in the other example about light, I mean, you can explain or know where light is without knowing the physics of it. And
right.
I think these are the essential properties of what the mind or God is when we call it theism. And a lot of the time, I think it's specifically with you granting a necessary reality, which is not a very common thing granted by atheists.
Well, actually, it is. They just use different language for it.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going with that. Is I think a lot of the time we're agreeing on a lot of things with different vocabulary that doesn't make the debate progress very far. And that's where I was trying to get at with a lot of the breaking down of these words,
Well,
because
right. That's
what is
the
meant.
fundamental difference is one has a mind, one doesn't. So the naturalist or the atheist, whatever, it doesn't matter what language you use, they hold the position that there is no mind at the ultimate necessary thing. No mind. The theist holds there is a mind. That is the difference. One
So
has consciousness, one does not have consciousness.
yes, and another way to explain it is one's calling it a mind, one is not calling
No,
it
no,
a
no,
mind.
no. There's not calling it. This is an ontological difference. One believes
Well,
there
I
is a
think there is
thing that
too.
has
Yes.
awareness, and one believes
Yes.
there is not a thing that has awareness.
So yeah, no, we're on the same page, but I think it will break down to the things that we're agreeing on, and like I'm calling it a mind and you're not.
Well,
Like I do
calling it what
think
we call it doesn't make a difference because we believe there is an ontological difference. One believes that there is a thing that exists that has a mind and is aware,
well, so
and one believes there is not.
from what I've described to you, what differences do we have
I have no
on
idea
what?
because you haven't actually given any differences. You've just defined your terms into existence. You haven't given me anything. So that's why I said in the beginning,
Okay.
give me evidence of why I should believe there is a mind at the core, the necessary thing, and as opposed to a not mind. That's what I need to know before I can say there is a difference.
Well, I haven't seen a difference yet either. What I think a mind is what I described. I think it's having a volition, which is a
Okay,
termination
but
of
that
causation.
doesn't help me at all. So maybe if you, by your definition, there is no difference. You're just calling everything a mind. By your definition, there is no
No,
non-mind.
I don't think that follows. So that's going to be a
How's so?
difference between us then.
What's a non-mind?
Well, obviously, any effects of a mind wouldn't be a mind.
Oh, okay.
Like at least in a contingent sense. I mean, I think obviously
Okay, but
necessary object
effects
produces
of a
mind.
mind isn't an ontology. Tell me what is a non-mind that is an ontology.
A non-mind would be any reality that's whether it's an effect itself or a cause of an effect that isn't the first cause or doesn't have the
Okay,
ability
that's
be
begging the
first.
question because now you've just said the first cause can only be a mind. So tell me what is the difference between a mind and a non-mind?
The difference. So what I just described there,
Was
like
begging the
ontological
question. You
nature.
just said everything that isn't the first cause is a non-mind.
Okay. Let me rewind for a second. So I defined a volition as the essential property of a mind. So whatever ontically has volitions would at least have properties of mind, whether you want to call it a mind or has a mind. I don't really find that super meaningful. But if that's the essential property of that, then whatever has that and produces effects that aren't themselves first causes of causal chains, just like you said, by definition. I mean, you're calling it question begging, but I'm not putting it in a premise to a conclusion. I'm saying that's the contents of the words I'm using. Is that
Right. I understand that, but so everyone who uses the word mind to mean consciousness does not use it in that way, so they don't care. Like
no, I think you're right about that. No, I think you're right about that. And I think that's I honestly don't want to impute belief.
that's what I'm asking. So I'm using mind in the classical sense, consciousness. Don't use mind in any other sense. We have to use the words in the way that most people use them to try and
Okay, so
make it meaningful to the
mind
audience.
is consciousness. What's consciousness? I don't know if you told me what that is. Or if you did.
Awareness.
Awareness.
Yes.
So awareness isn't consciousness. Consciousness is having awareness.
No, they are literally the same thing. Awareness is
Okay,
consciousness.
so what's awareness?
Yes.
If you're not going to question beg, what's awareness?
Awareness is like the ability to have input from things. Like you have a sense experience is a kind of awareness. Like you have input. You can experience things. Like,
So having experience.
yes, having experience. That's just
Okay,
definition.
what's having an experience? I'm not finding the termination. So I'm just curious. Like, I don't understand.
I'm not sure what you're asking here. So
Oh, sorry. What is
consciousness,
having an experience? That was the question. If I
me, like a mind is having the experience.
I mean, we're circling back to mind. So a mind is having awareness. Awareness is having experience. Experience is
A
mind.
mind is the thing that is doing the experiencing, and the self, the consciousness, is the experience.
Okay, so the question is, what is having an experience? What not what?
What is the
what
ontology of a mind? We have no idea. There could be lots of things that could be the ontology of a mind.
Okay, that might be my question, but let me just phrase it differently to make sure we're understanding each other. So, what does it mean to have an experience?
What does it mean to have an experience? Like,
Yes.
I don't know the correct way to describe that. It's qualia. It's the fact that we have one. That's what it means. There is a input that we can respond to. We see things, we hear things, we think. There is a process going on there.
Okay, I think we're actually going to be on the same page on this sort of fundamental understanding of what it means to have an experience. Like there's not going to be some further part you can go down to because like you can't explain anything without it. So I think we're actually probably going to agree with that. And building from there is whether or not I think here's the question you're probably trying to get at. So I'm understanding it. It's like, can we say that the necessary reality can have experience?
Well, no, it can. I grant it can. I'm saying, do we have a reason to believe it does? Like, I have experience. This cup does not have experience. Which one is the ultimate necessary thing?
So I want to make sure I don't want to misrepresent you. So when you say it can, you're saying it's possible.
Absolutely, it's possible there's a God.
So there's a possible world where this thing has experience.
So modal logic has massive problems. It does not work. Possible worlds are conceptual; they are not reality. So
okay. Well, let's rewind.
But so just going into modal logic has a whole bunch of different problems to it. So just want to stick with the basic question. I'm conscious. This cup is not conscious. Which one is the necessary thing? Like the cup or like me?
Necessary to consciousness, you mean?
No, like the necessary grounds of all reality, with the first cause essentially. Is it like me? Is it conscious, or is it like the cup and not conscious?
Well, I would say it's like you, obviously. Like I granted that before.
And I'm saying why? Give me evidence to believe that.
I don't want to lose the point that you just brought up here, because when you like would I have to deny possible world semantics and modal logic to adopt what you're saying?
No, most philosophers who do adopt possible worlds reject the idea of God for many reasons.
Okay, so let's stick to that for a second. So would they adopt what you just said, that it could be possible? Would they agree with that? Okay, so they agree that there's a possible world where this necessarily.
They reject the ontology of Plantinga's argument. It's just false.
I'm not using Plantinga's argument.
I'm preempting your argument here. So things that are possible are not possible in all possible worlds. The necessary modal logic of S5 logic does not work that way. So it's false that if it's possible.
Just to make sure I'm understanding, would I have to reject that to go along with what you're saying?
Yeah, Plantinga's particular version, yes. You have to reject Plantinga's version that if it's possible, then it is necessary in all possible worlds. Yes, that would just be false. That has to be false. Most people in philosophy grant that is false.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. So you're saying that the properties, or the necessary property that he's explaining being true in all possible worlds, you're saying that's false?
The fact that it's possible does not make it necessary.
Well, that's not what Plantinga said.
Yeah, it is actually. Plantinga's modal argument says that if it's possible that there is a being who is, forget his terminology, maximally excellent, then it is existing in all possible worlds necessarily. So the possible necessarily goes to it exists necessarily. I had a debate with this one debate with this on Ben Arbor, and the way it works is that if it's possible, then it does in fact exist necessarily, and that's kind of the crux of the ontological argument of Plantinga's version, which everyone rejects.
So you said I don't have to reject that possible means like the possible world semantics works. I don't have to reject that.
Possible world semantics is, again, just a semantics. It's just a way of describing things.
It's another way of describing other facts about propositions. Yes.
So
we're on the same page.
It's just a version of logic. Yes.
So what it means to say possible in an ontic sense.
No, possible is purely epistemic. You can't say possible in an ontic sense.
Okay.
Ontic is like ontological, means what's existing.
Yeah. So you're saying your claim. I want to make sure I heard you right. Possible is only epistemic.
Yes.
I want to make sure I heard that right.
Epistemic. Possible means we can imagine this existing.
Okay. All right. So I do agree there's obviously an epistemic nature to the word possible, but I'm not sure that only follows. At least I'm not saying I'm agreeing with that yet. So I want to make sure I'm understanding that. So the possibility of, say, let me think. Would it have been possible of the contingent facts of history, could they have been different?
Conceptually, yes.
Is that an epistemic claim?
Yes, conceptually epistemic.
So like Al Gore could have been the president in 2001. There's no contradiction in that statement.
Yes. Conceptually. Okay. This means in our heads we can imagine this being the case.
Yeah, but is the content of the proposition coherent? Does it break any rules of logic?
No, but again, that's all conceptual in our heads. So that's all epistemic.
Well, I'm not saying that itself is like platonically out there, right? So when I say ontic, that's not what I mean.
Right.
I'm talking about like maybe the word ontic may have been inappropriate. I'm talking about logically possible. How about that?
Yeah, it's logically possible.
Okay. All right. So if something, I think that's what possible world is addressing. So if something's logically possible, it's a description of a different reality of contingent facts that if they were true, then that's that world, but they're false in this world.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page there. So is necessarily true propositions true in all of them?
No, that's like sort of yes, sort of no. So necessarily true propositions in modal logic, which is a language,
Mhm.
are true in the language of modal logic. Are there other logics that reject that?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
implied by what we're saying. Yeah, I
So
agree.
so does modal logic describe reality? No, it's just a language. So the other languages could be right and modal logic could be wrong. So
When you say
even
modal
though
logic describe reality, so we might agree with that, but I'm not sure what you mean when you say
so
modal
like modal logic is a language. It's made up by humans. It's just like English. It's a formal language, but it's a language. And in modal logic, anything that is necessary is true in all possible worlds. That's just what it means by the definition. But is it actually true in all worlds that exist in reality? No, those are two
logic.
separate things.
That's not what it's saying. Yeah, okay, we're on the same page there. Sure, if that's what you meant by that.
So like modal logic doesn't describe reality. It's just a language.
Well, it's not
That's
sure. Okay, but like,
so when we say modal logic, if it's only like if something's true in all necessary or is necessarily true and is then true in all possible worlds in modal logic, that doesn't mean it's true in reality. Like there could be a possible world, for example, that exists in reality which does not conform to modal logic. It
okay,
can
okay,
conform to quantum logic or
okay,
fuzzy
okay.
logic.
Let's back up for a sec. So I agree with the language dichotomy. I agree that's all true. But with saying describing reality, it's not an emergent fact of the reality we observe that we describe, because obviously we're describing things that are false with modal logic. So I mean, we're going to be on the same page there. But when we say something is necessary, is there the use of maximal description, which is all the propositions that are true, or in
Well,
this case, possible?
that's the part I'm saying is that
Okay.
the modal logic cannot describe reality exhaustively. It doesn't work.
I mean, it's not trying to. Like, at least I've never heard someone claim that. That's the point. So
Well,
if you have a
that's what the all possible worlds thing is going for. It's trying to say that if
well,
it can't exist in all possible worlds, well, then it can't exist in reality.
okay, let me try to explain how I understand it, and we'll
Okay.
see it. There's so because I don't know if it, like, again, this might just be like how people are presenting it. If you say, I don't know if you're familiar with Proust, but Proust uses his big conjunctive contingent factor C.
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with Proust.
So
Alexander Proust, I think.
yeah, we don't have to use his argument that he uses, but the concept of saying, like, you just have, whether it's infinite or not, the set of propositions that are just true. That's just what we were calling actual reality, just a set of true. This you can organize it into a set of true propositions.
No, that's the part where I'm saying no, that's obviously
Okay.
false. So there are
Let's go back.
propositions like Schrodinger's cat, where a cat is both alive and dead at the same time, and those propositions can equally apply to reality. So dichotomy using standard logic and modal logic just doesn't describe reality.
Okay, well, no, explain that to me. I'm not following.
Are you familiar with Schrodinger's cat?
I'm familiar with that like this the paradox thing you're describing, but I'm not sure how you're relating it to what we're talking about.
In quantum mechanics, there are particles that both exist and don't exist at the same time, and that statement is true, even though it's a logical contradiction. So logical contradictions can't exist like that in standard logic and in modal logic, but reality just doesn't care. Like
Well,
quantum logic is a thing.
let's take that quantum logic the route we're going here, because I want to see how it's drawing these conclusions, because I know that this is a sort of physics point that people are going to bring up based on empirical data, but
Yeah.
what they're inferring from this data, I'm wanting to see where you're. When physics says a particle exists and doesn't exist at the same time, what's the observation you're referring to?
I have no idea. I haven't researched the physics in a while, but it's just the Schrodinger equation. That's just what it does. Quantum logic is a thing where those happen.
Okay, so why am I accepting this conclusion? Like, because the physicists say that this is what they observed?
Yeah, that's how science works. Is that you make a prediction, it's confirmed, you accept it.
I mean, I'll accept predictions, obviously, that they can make this happen. But what is this prediction you're referring to, where there's a particle?
I don't remember.
That
I'd have to research
they say
physics,
the
but it's
words,
pretty.
it exists and doesn't exist when they use this language.
No,
What's
that's
that?
like literal. It's meant as literal. It does and doesn't exist literally.
But what is that describing? I'm not understanding.
A particle that does and doesn't exist literally.
I don't understand what that means.
That's fine. You don't have to understand what it means. It works. It's reality.
So if it seems to be meaningless to me, like, what is that? Then why what do I do with it?
You don't need to do anything with it. The point is just that your conceptual languages that do make sense to you, reality just doesn't care about those. Those aren't exhaustive. You can't use those as a guide for reality.
When you say you're describing reality to me and with your language, then why is that, like, why is that any different? Like, you
It's
seem
not.
to be experiencing. You're going off this qualia that you seem to
So,
suggest.
so essentially, I'm arguing that your language system, which you believe can be used to describe reality, Doesn't. It's incomplete. It doesn't give us anything
Well,
about reality. It's just a language system.
is that inference based on some qualia of saying that there's a particle that a qualia exists and doesn't exist? Is that our ultimate like inference that we're making?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay. So why think that? Because there's an observation. Well, why are we trusting this ultimately? Like I'm not following
It
this
makes testable
logic.
predictions. So if it makes testable predictions, we have reason to believe it exists. It's true.
Why? Like why accept that?
Because we need some way to differentiate between is something imaginary and is
Don't
something
get me wrong, I
real.
accept that, but I'm trying to get to the point where the conclusion that we're drawing from this, why are we thinking that's meaningful because of a prediction on how we're interpreting that data from our experience of that data, which is like the quality or whatever you want to call it.
That's how science works.
Okay, all right. So what's this prediction that you're referring to, where there's a particle that's existing and not existing,
That's
where we're making
that's
that?
you'd have to Google it. Google the Schrodinger equation to figure that out. Like I don't remember the physics, but it's the Schrodinger equation.
So is this what they're saying, and you're just taking with the words? Like I'm not sure if I'm
No, it's
understanding.
literally the Schrodinger equation. The Schrodinger equation shows this: there are things that exist and don't exist at the same time, and the Schrodinger's cat is an analogy to this to make it conceivable for people.
Okay, so that's where you're drawing the Schrodinger's cat. Yeah, I'm obviously I'm not a physicist, so I'm no expert, but I'm not sure I'm granting this leap that they're making. Maybe they're right. I mean, sure, I guess, but I'm not sure that there's a meaningful description of what they're saying. And I know you're saying that my meaningful description of my language doesn't conform to reality, but when they say conform to reality, like this is ultimately based on what they're seeing as a prediction being verified from this experience that they have of an observation. I'm
Right.
not sure that's very meaningful to them either. I think they're just saying the words and it's just meaningless.
Right. That was the
But
argument
I
used
mean, that's what
against.
they want to do.
Well, that's the argument they used against Einstein when he said time bends, because the same thing is like, well, time can't bend. Time's a philosophical concept. Physical reality doesn't care if we can understand it. Just doesn't care at all.
Sure, and I think the same. I would agree with that as well, and I'd say that I would a very similar response on how like, I know time's a whole other thing, but I think it would apply equally as well. Of course, time isn't something I necessarily was going to get into, but I figured we might. So
Well, I mean, that's the point: is that reality doesn't care if we can understand it. Reality just works, and so if we make testable predictions and it's completely
well,
incomprehensible,
I
then
mean,
it's true.
it's no part of what I'm saying to say that I have to understand it for it to be real. Obviously, that's not true.
Right. So my point is that again, modal logic is just a language. It doesn't give us anything about it. It doesn't limit the way reality can be. It's just limits the way we can imagine reality to be.
Yeah, it is just a language, of course. I mean, it's not like it makes reality the way it is. I mean,
Right.
I don't know anyone that says that's true, but maybe people do.
Alexander Proust and Alvin
Yeah,
Plantinga.
sure. They might. I don't really know.
But
Like,
so again, just going back to the main point, you're trying to say that what is ultimate nature of reality could be me, could be the cup. Which one is it? You're saying it's like me. Why?
sure. I mean, as far as that analogy breaks down, but I'm trying to understand. Like, would you consider yourself, in so far as people have used these words, would you consider yourself like the positivists that they're people charge a lot?
No, no one's a positivist anymore. Positivists died out a long time ago.
Okay, so do we have to verify something or anything like that to make it reasonable to believe?
Only if you're claiming it's a part of the world.
Okay, are there things that aren't part of the world that we believe are true?
Yes.
Like what?
1 + 1 = 2. A equals A. Bachelors are unmarried.
Okay, so what do you? Maybe we're operating on different. What do you mean by believe when you say we believe something? Like what does that mean?
We have an idea in our head. Like,
Well, I mean, so this I just kind of go with like a standard definition. It's just being convinced that something's true.
sure.
Okay, so when we say part of reality, are you thinking specifically like physical universe stuff, like, or what do you include in that?
Yeah. So again, there's a difference between our imagination and reality. If I imagine a unicorn, I don't see a unicorn in front of me. If I say a unicorn exists, it exists in my head. It doesn't exist in reality. So the thing in my head is just a representation of a unicorn. It's not a unicorn. The unicorn does not exist in reality.
So 1 + 1 = 2 is the same way.
It's a representation, yes. It's a language that we use to describe reality, but it isn't. It doesn't exist in reality. There's no one.
Between 1 + 1 = 2 and the unicorn, meaningfully.
Nothing. They're the same. They're just describe. Oh, well, 1 + 1 = 2 describes reality. The unicorn doesn't describe anything in reality. So comparative would be like 1 + 1 = 7. That would be like a unicorn.
So we can have ideas in our head that describe reality.
Yes, like I can imagine there's a TV in front of me. There is a TV in front of me.
Sure. Okay. So when we say, so if you say that God is an idea in the mind, obviously that alone wouldn't say that there's not a God.
Right, everything is an idea in your head. So
Okay,
when you
all right, so we got past that.
so we have to go like one step further. So is it just an idea in your head, or is it also something that exists in reality?
Okay, all right. So what would be the step that doesn't involve verificationism, like this, whatever you want to call it?
I have no idea what you're asking.
Okay, hey, so you said you're not a positivist, so
Yes.
we can know things are true or believe things or whatever you want to call that without necessarily having to verify it.
Right.
Okay, so what would be necessary for you to believe something that's not just an idea in your head, but it's also true about reality?
Oh no, that for reality you need some way to differentiate between imagination and reality. It doesn't need to be empiricism. It can be anything that'll work. I don't know what will work, but I know empiricism works. But there are other things like empiricism specifically states all true knowledge is only empirical. But there are other kinds of knowledge, like conceptual knowledge, like 1 + 1 = 2. That's true by definition. You don't need empirical verification for that. It's just a definition. Like Harry Potter has a scar on his forehead. That's true by definition because we define Harry Potter as that. You don't need empirical verification for that. It's purely conceptual. So knowledge can be broken down into several categories. One is conceptual, the stuff in our head. One is empirical, the stuff in the world. And the third is metaphysical, the fundamental nature of reality stuff. I think, therefore, I am, essentially.
Okay,
And
so when you say the world, I want to make sure I'm understanding your words here. What's all the world? That's not this metaphysical reality that you're referring to, because you separated those.
metaphysics is everything, yeah. Empiricism is just the stuff we can verify is not imaginary. Metaphysics is everything, is the fundamental nature of reality.
Is just the stuff we can verify is not imaginary.
What?
Did I hear you right? Empiricism is just verifying the stuff that isn't imaginary.
Yeah, essentially the world that we can experience. Now, it could be like we're in the Matrix, but it's not imaginary.
But we can't. Okay, all right. So the Matrix wouldn't be imaginary.
So let me explain it to you this way. Okay. If I imagine a unicorn, I don't see a unicorn. Mm-hmm. There's some difference between these two things. We're going to call this one the internal imaginary. We're going to call that one the external. We don't know what their ontology is. Maybe we're in the Matrix. Maybe we're all in an idealistic dream like in Hinduism or whatever. Doesn't make a difference. There's some difference between this and that. That's the external, this is the internal, and we need to a way to differentiate between the two. Is any particular thing I say exists, is it one of these things or is it one of those things?
Okay, I'm following. So
if you say...
I'm not verifying it with empiricism as part of the world.
I didn't say anything about empiricism in that.
No, but from what you said before, because you were separating the world, the world, right, with metaphysical reality, and empiricism verifying what is real in the world. So I'm trying to draw the steps here.
So remember, so we have the internal, this is the conceptual, and then we have the external, that's the empirical. So we use empiricism to differentiate because we need some way to differentiate between these two, and that's what empiricism does. Metaphysics is a different category. That isn't involved in the system yet. All we have is the conceptual stuff in our head, empirical stuff in the world.
Okay. So what was that? Explain that metaphysics dichotomy again with respect to what you just said, because I'm not sure I followed that.
Metaphysics is, I haven't explained that at all yet. I was just putting that in because it's part of my system, but it's not really relevant to this conversation. It's about like absolute certainty and how to differentiate between the fundamental nature of reality as opposed to the next step in reality. It's not part of the conversation necessarily. So all we need right now is like, there's the imaginary stuff in our head and there's the stuff that exists in the world. And if which one you're claiming the God isn't just something in our head, it's something in the world. So you need some way.
Let me stop you there for a second, because I'm not sure I'm saying that, because I'm trying to I'm trying to understand exactly what your vocabulary implies.
Okay.
So I'm not sure I'm saying God is in the world as you just described it, because if the world is just the empirical verification.
No, that doesn't matter. So it's is God just something we've imagined and made up and doesn't exist? Is anything other than our imagination? Yes or no?
So I would say no.
Okay, so you're saying it's in the world. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's
okay. So
if it's not this, then it's one of those things.
Okay, so I guess that would be a breakdown, because I don't think if it's not imaginary, therefore it's not real other than existing in the world. I guess that would be our breakdown.
Well, no, existing in the world just means not imaginary. That's all it means.
I wouldn't accept that dichotomy. That would be our difference. So existing in our heads as somehow being just like something fictional would, that we would say doesn't have any real description to it, I wouldn't include as merely being a part of the empirical world. Like that just wouldn't be. I don't even think the average theist would believe that. Like that's just
no. I never said anything about the empirical world. Nothing about that. So there's reality and there's imaginary. Imagination isn't reality. If I imagine a unicorn, there isn't one in reality. Imaginary means not reality.
Let me make sure I represented you right. Did you say that what is in the real world, you use the word the world, we can only know empirically?
No. That's never what I said. So I just said if it's imaginary, it's not real. Unicorns are imaginary. They are not real.
So
So
there
if
are
you
real
want to
things
say
that are
there's
not in the world.
no, stop. If it's in the world, it's real. That's it.
Okay.
And this has nothing to do with empiricism. This has nothing to do with physics. This is just there is the imaginary stuff and there is the real stuff in the world, and those are the only two categories of things.
Sorry if you hear typing. I'm going to write some of these down so I don't keep forgetting them.
Yeah. No problem. I do that all the time. I'm typing right now. So this is just a very basic distinction.
Repeat that last.
There is the imaginary stuff in our head which isn't real, and there is the real stuff in the world which is real. That's just there's the imaginary stuff, not real.
You said if it's in the world, it is real. You said that.
That's just the definition. Anything that isn't only imaginary is real. So if God exists not outside of our imagination, he's real. Doesn't matter how he exists.
I have a question. Is there something that's real that doesn't exist in the world? Or are these just synonyms?
The reality. It's just reality. So there's the imaginary stuff that doesn't exist in reality, and there's the stuff that does exist in reality.
Okay. So when you use the word "the world" a few times, what
reality is just synonymous with reality.
These are synonyms. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So can we know things in the world or what's real? I think you said no. Let me make sure. Without empiricism.
Possibly. You just need some way. The only thing you need to know about something in the world is a way to differentiate: is it imaginary and is it real? Any method that you can do that works. So empiricism is the method I use, but if any method that can differentiate between those two works.
So hold on. So any method that can let you distinguish between imaginary and real. It's not just the empirical world, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, no, that's just one. That's just one method.
Sure. Okay. Is it possible in your framework here that there are things that this empirical method is limited, and then there are other things that can be known and are real without the empirical method?
Yeah, you just have to provide a different method.
Okay, so how would you determine whether these are successful?
I have no idea. It's up to you and the method.
Well, see, right there, and I'm kind of glad we got to this point, because this is ultimately where I would want to get, is I think that's just where the fundamental difference between the theist and the atheist is that they have a, I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least for me, and as far as I can tell with theism, is what they're going to consider successful for themselves. And I think this is probably just true of people. I don't want to charge anyone individually, because I think, especially when we're talking like this in this kind of context, we try to be as objective as we can, but a lot of times it's going to come down to someone's like preference on what they want. So whether they find it successful or not, whether it conforms to what they already believe.
So a theist has a different criterion for differentiating imaginary from real, and they think that their criterion can indicate a God. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And well, further from that, what I'm going to say, and I think some theists will disagree with this, but I think largely, I think they'll agree with me, at least Christians tend to, is that's not, that conditions that they have aren't going to be compelling to just generally everybody. Like it's just not going to be.
That's fine. That doesn't need to be. I don't care about that either.
Okay. So from there, I'm obviously under no illusions that I'm going to be able to like persuade you out of it.
Persuasion does not matter. I don't care about persuasion. You don't need to persuade me. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking, what do you think can differentiate between God being imaginary and real? That's all I'm asking. It doesn't need to be persuasive. It doesn't need to persuade everybody. That's the only question.
I'm not, a lot of the time, whether or not I think when you say what would distinguish God being imaginary from real, it's going to depend on who I ask. Like if I ask you, I don't know if what I'm going to say will meet that standard.
Well, no. Again, so that's not, whether it meets my standard is irrelevant. You could be talking to a computer right now and just have it on the screen. How do you differentiate God from being imaginary and real? And you'd have to present your answers. I am irrelevant. No matter who you're talking to, it's irrelevant. Your arguments are true or false on their own, independent of any people at all. So
yes, but someone's assessing whether they're true or false. There's always going to be a person at the end of the day, and like even if it's a computer, someone told the computer how to do it. So
no. So people are irrelevant here. This is the part that doesn't matter. No one you're talking to matters here. All that matters is you believe you have a way to show or to justify the belief that God is a real thing and not an imaginary thing, and then you need to present an argument for this. No one who you're talking to matters here. So my goal would be to show is if I said, I know leprechauns exist because I used a magic 8-ball and it told me leprechauns exist. Well, we know that's a bad answer. That magic 8-ball can't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real, because you could shake it and again do magic cones out of it. So if I can show that whatever method you use can't differentiate between what's imaginary and real, then I show your method is false. Doesn't matter my standard, doesn't matter your standard, doesn't matter anybody's standard. If I can show your method can't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real, it doesn't work. It's not evidence. And that's what my approach usually is. So I'm going to ask you for a reason, tell me some way that can differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real, and you're going to present an argument, and I say, that argument can't tell the difference, here's why. So it's not evidence. That's usually my approach in debates.
Well, luckily for me at least, we don't have to get into the idea of a necessary reality, because like a lot of times I have to kind of defend that. But I think you were right about the language barrier. But from that, like insofar as I'm giving my initial reason for believing that what we're describing necessary reality as an appropriate use of the words that I used before, it's just going to be the same arguments I gave before. Now, it seemed like your response ultimately, because we obviously went in a lot of different directions, was that it's either just meaning it's not different from what you're describing, and I'm just calling it that, or I haven't added some extra property that you find appropriate to call to mind. Am I understanding you right there?
Sort of. So you've said there's a necessary reality. I grant it, and you call that necessary reality having volition because the first cause is volition, and you call anything that has volition a mind. So I mean, I can call anything that has weight a dog, and this cup has weight, therefore this cup is a dog. But I mean, obviously it's not. If someone asks me, are you holding a dog? I mean, I say yes because I define this as a dog. Obviously, it's not what they mean. That's not what they're talking about.
I follow what you're saying. Like, just like when you use the word mind in a normal like, conversation, people are going to attribute more things to it, especially a human mind. They're going to think a human mind. So we're agreeing with that. But clearly, as far as like we're only empirically acquainted with human minds, people can understand the idea of minds not being human minds. So I think we would agree with that. Like they can conceptually understand those things. And what I'm saying is I'm just pushing that. And I think the theists generally, when they talk about God as like the ultimate mind, as like, you know, whatever they might describe it as, is pushing to the essential property of what they see as being a mind. Without that, it is no longer a mind. Like that's all I was describing. And I think if you push it far enough, any theist, if you push it far enough, that's what they're going to grant the essential concept of God is at the foundation.
Right. It's a mind.
Now they'll pile things on top of it, and they'll start describing, you know, especially since they think God's a mind, they're going to start being more
right. I haven't asked for any of that. I haven't asked for any of that stuff. So because again, my distinction is just the essential property of a mind, which is like consciousness essentially. Why should we believe the ultimate nature of reality has that, as opposed to being a cup, which does not have that?
Okay. So we wouldn't say, as far as I'm using my words here, we wouldn't say that a cup is a first cause of something. I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe you would.
But that's not the question. So the question is, doesn't consciousness. The first cause does not need to be conscious.
I would say no, because it doesn't have that property.
The first cause does not need to be conscious.
Well, I'm saying that it does. So that's a difference.
But why? So why would we go with it's conscious as opposed to it not being conscious?
Okay, so what I'm
you defining it that way isn't an answer. That doesn't work as an argument. So you just say, why? Give me a reason evidentially.
Okay, so if we're just disagreeing on our use of words here, then I guess for your sake, we wouldn't call it conscious, I suppose. But like at that point, we're not really going anywhere.
Well, no, again, I don't care about. We're just using words. We have to use words in the contemporary way, the way most people understand them.
Okay, so what am I missing out of consciousness? We tried to go into that. And we went to the.
Well, I mean, gravity does not have a mind. This cup does not have a mind. The universe does not have a mind. The origin, the necessary thing, does not have a mind. I have a mind.
The breakdown that I'm getting to, I get to anyway, is first causation. Now you're telling me first causation doesn't have to be mind,
right?
So why? Explain.
Why would it need a mind? Like, there's no reason it would need a mind to begin with. So guessing why would this cup needs a mind? Like, no, it doesn't. Like,
so if we're using the vocabulary again, and you're saying I'm just defining it as a mind. If I'm saying, okay, when I say mind, I mean something that has its first causation. You say, does this cup have a mind? Well, no. So from there,
no. Again, so you cannot use mind. That's off the table. You cannot use mind as first causation. That's not an option, because the definition of mind in contemporary society does not mean first causation. It's not what mind means.
Okay, then add the things I'm missing.
Consciousness means mind. Mind means consciousness. You need a consciousness. If you don't have consciousness, you don't have a mind.
Let me write this down for a second. So consciousness, if I remember, consciousness equals experience.
Yep. Mind is
consciousness. Awareness of, how do you explain it? Awareness of what?
Just awareness is fine. Consciousness equals awareness.
And then what was after that? We got to the qualia.
That's it. We'll just stop there. Consciousness is awareness. Don't know what causes it. Don't care what causes it. Consciousness is any form of awareness.
Oh, I'm not saying what causes awareness. I'm saying what is awareness.
It's awareness.
I have to know what this means. It's
the fact that I'm aware of things. I can see things. I'm aware of things. I can think. Those are all kinds of awareness. That's what awareness means.
Okay. All right. This is for my sake, so I'm understanding what you're saying. So awareness.
Google the word awareness.
Well, in the way we're discussing here, I mean, we can, like, I can Google the word knowledge, and that's not going to get to the.
Well, no, I'm using awareness just in the classical definition sense: knowledge or perception of any situation or fact. That's awareness. That's what it is. That's consciousness. Is that.
Okay, and the reason I'm doing this is because I think this will help properly understand each other, because I'm sure you're not understanding me, I'm not understanding you. So moving on from this awareness, So can if I know you're probably not a sort of actual libertarian free will kind of person, but like going along with these concepts, can something that's not aware have a volition as I've described it?
No.
No. Okay. So is it a part of being aware to have volitions?
No, that would be an extra thing. You can be aware without having volition, but you can't have volition without being aware.
Okay. So what would be? Can you give me like an example, just so I'm understanding?
Like for example, if someone went through a serious stroke and they have conscious awareness, or they have sensory information about what reality is, but they have no desires, no motivations, no intentions. They just have the experience of being aware, but no motivation.
So having information about your surroundings and stuff like that.
Yeah, knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. So they have perception. But
like computers can have information. I don't think we'd call computers aware.
They don't have a perception.
Okay, so what is a perception?
You want me to Google the word perception for you? Because that's anytime you ask that, I'm just going to Google the word.
Actually, yeah, go ahead, because I want to see if this is going to fit what we're talking about.
Perception. The ability to see, hear, become aware of something through the senses. State of being, process, becoming aware of something through the senses.
So it's using the word awareness?
Yes, to hear or be aware. Yes, they're synonyms.
Okay, so
a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something, a mental impression. Intuitive understanding or insight.
Okay.
Any of those work.
Okay, so like that's why I wanted to do that, because a lot of these like sort of Webster definitions that we use in a common language won't necessarily get to the root concept of what we're referring to here. Like,
no, that is the root concept. Like that's it.
I mean, okay, well, if that's
a way
what
of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something, a mental impression. That's fine.
I mean, yeah, that's totally fine if that's what you want to go with. But the thing is, like, when you're using internal language here, which is Heidegger's problem with being, then you're going to just not advance the point. You're not going to advance the concept past that point.
Definitions are all tautological. So if you ask what is a bachelor, I'm going to say a bachelor is an unmarried man. If you ask what is an unmarried man, I'm going to say it's a bachelor. There's not circular reasoning. That's just tautological. Any definitions just literally mean the same thing.
Yeah, eventually you will get to that foundational point, which is what I mentioned earlier. So
that's not a foundational point. That's just how language works. If you ask for a definition, it's always going to be tautological.
Language is our ability to communicate our concepts. So I'm talking about the concepts specifically. So best we can use our words.
So the concepts represent something in reality. And the something in reality for awareness is the thing we're experiencing. That is awareness. It's called qualia. There's no further level. It is that. Now, it could be made, I could further define it and say awareness is a product of biochemical processes in the brain, which is a possibility. Or I could say awareness is a product of dualism, where there's a interaction between idealistic things and thing.
So the thing that is or has qualia is consciousness, and that's what a mind is. So
consciousness is qualia, and the thing that has qualia is a mind.
Here's the sort of reasoning process, I guess you could say, that the theists at the fundamental level would use, or for theism, is that things that have volitions have qualia or experience in our minds, and volitions, as I've explained it, are things that are the first cause of a causal chain.
So that you're not allowed that. That's circular.
Not allowed that.
No.
Okay, explain again.
I can say the thing that causes the first cause is an apple, therefore an apple created the universe. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
See, I'm not following. I'm really not.
You can pick any words you want and say whatever is the first cause is this. The first cause is a dog. Anything that causes the first cause is by definition a dog. What does that tell us about the first cause?
Well, I'm just trying to help you understand how the theists are thinking about this.
Well, I'm pretty familiar with how the theists think about it. The problem is that your definitions don't tell us anything. They're completely arbitrary.
Okay, so let me try again then. So the theist sees the volition as a property of a person or of a mind or something having qualia, and they see how they're understanding that. I mean, yes, you can disagree with that, but as being a first cause of a causal chain, and they see that as the true description of reality with contingent to necessary. And so they're saying, well, this must be a property of a mind.
Right. I agree. And that's the point, is that they're wrong. Like when they think that the first cause has to be volition, they're wrong. And all I have to do to show that is what we can demonstrate.
It has to be. That's just what they're calling it. Now, I think it just breaks down as we're just calling it something different, and I guess that's okay.
Well, no. It's not calling something different. What you call it is irrelevant. The words don't matter. It is what we are referring to when we use the words. When I refer to something, it is the ontology of the thing. Like if I say it's an apple, the connotation of apple isn't just the name I'm labeling it. Apples have qualities. They're physical. They taste sweet. They grow on trees. Does the first cause have those things? No. So it is not an apple. The first cause is not an apple. Volition has specific properties. It is a part of consciousness. You need consciousness to have it. So does the first cause of consciousness? No. Just like it's not an apple, it's not volition. You can call it that if you want, but it has nothing. It tells us nothing. It does not have the properties associated with that word.
Okay. So volitions are properties of consciousness. So we're agreeing with that.
Yeah.
So what is the volition for you then? Like when you use the word
property of consciousness. What do you mean? The first cause, there's no volition there at all. First cause is just the first cause. You don't need volition for that. It's just an interaction. It's just a cause, an event, a thing that occurrence. Like those would all be words that you could use to describe the first cause. Volition isn't one of them. Volition is just
what's something you would use. What would be a description of a volition? Not what is it, like what it is. It's a property of it. But what is the volition? Not just what is it a property of, but what is a volition? Like what is the description of that?
I have a volition to try to explain to you that the first cause is not a volition.
That's an example. I mean, what is the meaning of a volition?
Intentionality.
Okay, is intentionality consciousness?
No, intentionality requires consciousness, but
Okay.
It's not the same thing.
Okay, good. So so then explain that to me further. So is it synonymous with intentionality, or are you describing it as being
intentionality and volition are synonyms, just like bachelor and unmarried are synonyms.
Okay.
But consciousness, you can be conscious without having a volition, just like you can be in a brain dead state where you're aware of reality, but you don't have any desire to do anything.
But you can't, I think you granted this earlier, but I don't want to misrepresent you, but you can't have a volition without being conscious.
Right.
Okay. All right. So what is the essential property of a volition?
Consciousness plus intention plus some kind of desire.
Missing, like if it was missing, it wouldn't be a volition on its own. Like what would
desire or motivation of some kind of purpose.
I mean, I know like we're not terminating at something specific like I was trying to do. And I know like your point is that it's all tautological, but I'm not finding new information. So
there is a function in the mind, and the function is intentional. So it does something. It wants something. It craves something. It has a purpose. All of those things, there is a function there. Now, what we call it doesn't make a difference. The words are irrelevant. That function exists in the mind, and that's volition.
I don't know. I'm just not understanding. It's probably my fault, but when I try to piece this together, I'm going back in a circle to like consciousness, mind, awareness, experience. I keep going back to these things.
So consciousness is a thing. Consciousness is a function. It exists, and so if you have that function, you are conscious. That function is an existing thing. It doesn't matter what words we use to describe it.
Okay, so we're probably not making much progress here. So I'll end this point with this. I mean, you can ask another question or object to it, but the way theists, obviously the majority of theists believe in free will in some sense, especially in individual finite persons and minds. And they would apply the same information to human persons.
Right.
So human persons would be the first cause of their volition in that causal chain of whatever volition effects that produce in the world.
Right. I'm familiar with their theory of free will.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Now, I mean you can just reject or deny all that, and that's fine. But what the reasoning process is just from that to say that the necessary cause is the first causal chain, so it has the property of the consciousness in the mind.
There's no connection there.
Well, I'm saying like if you adopt, which I mean you're not, but if you adopt the concept of volition.
Well, no, I understand that theists want to believe that, but there's no evidence there. If I ask for evidence, show this isn't just an imaginary thing you've made up in your head like a fairy tale, you got nothing. You've defined it, which is just, again, something in your head.
So it's not like I'm not offering evidence in that sense, if that's what you're saying. What I'm saying is what we're describing as God is that. Like I think that's all.
Well, I understand what you're describing as God, but again, my original question was give me a reason to show this is not an imaginary thing and is a real thing. Your definitions are all imaginary, so that doesn't give us a way to differentiate. You need to show.
At this point, it's more like me saying that the necessary reality that's the first cause of contingent reality, or the essential cause of contingent reality, which would also be the first in this sense, is what we're believing in.
Right. I understand your definition, but your definition is imaginary. Show me a reason to believe that there is a consciousness that is real, that is the fundamental nature of reality.
The other language that I did, I thought you granted it, but maybe you didn't grant all of it, that there's a necessary reality that's the reason and cause that there's contingent reality.
Right. I grant that.
Okay.
No, there's no volition there. You can think there is. You can define it. It's not required. That's just imaginary.
Okay. So we don't even have to use the word volition then, but like that's the essential meaning of God.
Right. But that tells us nothing. So that could be atheists are right, theists are right.
Yeah. I mean.
So that's the point. This is what I'm asking is who is right? Give me a reason to believe the theist is right and the atheist is not right.
Well, that's why I haven't been using that language, is because at that point, if that's the essential, like just that by itself, when you say it doesn't tell you anything, well, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to get information about. No, sure, it doesn't. That by itself.
Right. So,
But
so we grant there's a necessary thing. It
Mhm.
could be a God and the theist is right, or it could be a not God and the atheist is right. And that's the question I'm asking: is
I don't know.
why should we believe the theist is right?
Like I that dichotomy I'm not working with, because it's not that like this, it could be this or this. It's more like what we're describing as being different. You can describe something that's real under a false pretense, obviously. Like I heard I can't remember who it was, but I heard the analogy of if I say that man over there drinking martini is my uncle, but it turns out he wasn't drinking martini, it was water. Like I'm still referring to the same thing under a false description. So
Okay.
like when you start adding on other properties that some theists or maybe many theists attribute to being as God, I'm not there yet. I'm just saying that the essential thing that they're referring to as God is this reality that I think we're agreeing exists. But
Yeah, we
we're
agree
not.
there is a necessary thing. That is not the definition of God,
Yeah, well,
because
okay,
that doesn't
yeah,
tell us anything. Like if there are definitely definitions of God that use that, like pantheism, where there is no consciousness there, and that's fine. But what the question we want to know an answer to is who is right, the atheist or the theist? If it's just an unconscious nature, then the atheist is right. There is no God. If there is a God there that has a mind, then the theist is right.
okay. So and this is where I got to the point of the theists are seeing that same description that we're referring to exists as conscious. Like that's what they see. I mean,
I
they're just going to
understand that's what they see. I don't care what they see. Give me a reason to believe it. Give me evidence. I don't care what they see. I don't care what they believe. It doesn't matter. Give me evidence.
okay. So that's all I was offering there is like that part which you're disagreeing with or saying we can't call it that. Like that's all they're saying. Like I mean,
I know
there's
what they're saying. I don't care what they're saying. The first question I asked at the beginning is give me a reason to believe what they're saying isn't just imaginary made up fairy tale.
okay. I'm going to try. I'll try the last time, and
I
because
grant there's a necessary reality. We agree with that. Give me a reason to believe it has a mind.
okay. So the reason the theist believes it has a mind
I
or
don't
is a
care.
mind.
No, I don't want to know why the theists believe it. I want an actual
Okay,
evidence. I don't care what anyone believes.
let's omit that part. The reason it is. How about that? Let's omit that part. The reason it is that is the first cause of causal chain. That's the
Why
reason.
is a first cause a mind?
Because the first cause would be the essential property of a volition.
Why is a
Like
first cause a mind?
because it has a volition, which only minds can have. I'm just going to omit the theist belief part because I mean
Okay, so
that's the
why
present.
does the first cause need a volition?
Why does the first cause need, no? We're saying the first being a first cause is a volition.
Again, so
Volition.
you've given me no evidence here. You've just defined it. So that's imaginary. That you haven't given. I can define the first cause as a dog. Therefore, the universe is a dog, and that is equally as reasonable as what you said. So that does not give me a way to differentiate: is it real or is it imaginary? Because we can use the same methodology for the
Okay.
first cause as a dog.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, if that's just a word, like I'm
No, I'm
like
saying it's literally a physical dog. It's literally a physical dog caused the universe. The first cause is by definition a physical dog,
what's physical dog?
like an Airedale, a boxer, a Doberman, physical dog, like literally a physical dog. I can say the first cause of the universe is by definition a literal physical dog.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm going with it. So a physical dog, and what's the essential property of a dog?
no idea. It's just, I'm just saying just literally
Oh,
or a
well,
cup. I
I
can say a
mean,
cup.
if that's
Any
the
object.
direction.
I can just pick anything. The first cause is a cup. By definition, the first cause is
Okay.
this particular cup.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting point that I'm going is like I gave the essential property of what I described, but I want to know what these essential properties are. Now, if it doesn't matter, if you don't
Essential
have one,
properties are
look it
just
up.
essential properties are just descriptions of what the thing is. It's ontology. So this I don't know what the I don't know what the essential property of this cup is. It has one, but whatever that is, this is just it's made of matter. It's electromagnetism holds it together. Whatever you want. Just literally this cup is by definition the first cause of the universe. Clearly, that's stupid.
Okay,
This
because
cup is obviously not the first cause
we're
of the
agreeing
universe.
there are essential properties of the cup that aren't true about what we are agreeing on.
Essential properties don't make a difference here. So it's not about the essential properties. It's that we can define whatever we want as being the first cause of the universe. I can say a square circle is by definition the first cause of the universe. Is
Okay,
that
so
evidence? No.
I mean, you don't have to call it evidence, but what I'm saying is the point that we're agreeing on, which is obviously you can use whatever word you want, is that the concept
No,
in mind,
not word. So this ontology. So you can describe whatever essential properties you want. Essential property of blah, 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 square circle or cup or physical process or essential property of apple. Any essential properties you want. You can just make up essential properties, give it a list, give it a name, and say this is by definition the first cause.
okay, so let's make sure I'm following. The difference that you're saying isn't there, that I think is there, is that when you're using these other things and you're saying that we can just call it this, you're also still believing about these other things, concepts that I'm not believing about that thing if you're using it to describe the first cause. Like I don't see how that's following from what you're saying. I really don't.
Anybody can make up what they want and call it the first cause. That doesn't mean it is.
So when I said that a volition, which you're saying has other things to it, is the essential property of it is not those things. That's not how we're understanding it. When I said we were acquainted with ourselves as persons, that it is the first cause of a causal chain. It terminates at the volition or at the will or whatever you want to call it.
Go ahead.
I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was.
That was that we're agreeing that the necessary reality isn't preceded by some other causal effects. So it's the first. Okay, so that's it.
Yes, yes, and we can agree on all of that, except none of that indicates the word volition doesn't apply there. It's just, again, you could just replace it with any word, like just a proposition in logic. Just give it with a. It tells us nothing about a.
Okay, so so let's take the word volitions and stuff out for a second. So
just replace it with a. So there is something that caused. There is a necessary thing that caused the beginning of the universe, where it's going to be a.
Okay, so from here, I'm not super worried about semantics at this exact moment, because from here, even though I think earlier in the talk you mentioned that a lot of people do, it's just a description problem. That's important because in the conversations, this part that we're agreeing on isn't agreed on explicitly, and kind of the reason I've been using the idea of like this is what they call it, this is this is how they understand the concept, is that I think this fundamentally is agreed upon in advancing the conversation, because insofar as it's a debate and people have fun with the debates and it's like atheism or theism on these like macro scale ideas that you get like Christianity and then naturalism or whatever, I think there's a lot more agreement on this basic premise. And
well, I think they all agree on there is a necessary thing, which is reality. We all agree reality exists.
I know, but the contents of that, I think we also agree on to a pretty large extent that isn't explicit in the conversation.
No, so it is. The problem is the next step. So we all agree reality exists. We all agree we can call it a necessary thing and that there's a contingent reality and that the contingent reality falls from a necessary thing. Everybody agrees with that, 100%. We call it different things. The question, no one cares about that question. No one even asks about that question because we all agree with it. The part we care about is, does reality have a mind? Does it have a name? Can we talk to it? Does it have a consciousness? Those are the things we care about. Now, what you mean by those terms is irrelevant. We're talking about what classical people mean by those terms. Does it have a mind? Can it speak? Can we talk to it? Can it answer prayers? Does it make a difference?
Getting on those, adding those properties on is further steps that I haven't.
No. That's not the further steps. Those are the only first steps. If you're not asking those questions, you're not talking about what theists and atheists are talking about. Like, we've already agreed to the necessary reality. We agree there is reality. We don't care about that question. That question is not entailed in the debate. The only part of the debate is, does it have a mind as most human beings understand the word to mean, or does it not, and it's just a cup? Okay. That's the only part of the debate.
No, I think that's a good segue to the next point. Now, how much longer do you want to go before I start getting into it? Because I don't know if you
go for it. I don't care.
Okay, cool. So in terms of our use of the language and what we consider volitions or not, let's not use those words, but let's take one of the. Let's take
use logical. X, Y, Z, A, B, C, just any logical proposition. P is this.
Okay, well, I tried to do that, but that didn't really get us anywhere.
No, so there's a necessary thing. The necessary thing caused reality. We're going to call the necessary thing P. Okay, that's fine. There's no error in that. Go with that. P. There is P.
Okay, there's P, but what I'm saying is P has properties that I believe that I'm calling something that you're not, because you think that.
What are the properties? Name a property.
Consciousness, whatever what we talked about before.
Okay, and why?
Those properties, you're including things into it that right now I'm not, because I'm going to get to that. But when I'm including these things, I gave you their definitions, their essential concept, or their essential properties.
Well, again, essential properties don't matter here. So you're saying that P has consciousness. I'm saying P does not have consciousness. Demonstrate P has consciousness.
Okay, when I said I demonstrate P has consciousness, I explained the first causation. Like that
No, all you did was gave a definition. So P is P. That's all you said is P is P. Just like I said, consciousness is awareness. P is P.
If you say what's the evidence that P has consciousness, I say it was first cause. You say that's not evidence because first causes aren't consciousness. So
you're saying that there is an additional property to P. P isn't just the origin of the universe. It also has consciousness. If it's just the origin or the first cause, if P is just the first cause, that's it, full stop. You can add nothing else. Then you're saying P is conscious.
If P is just the first cause of the universe, it has nothing else.
You can say nothing else about it. That's all we can say about it so far. That's the only property we've added in right now.
Why?
That's how definitions work. So P is by definition the first cause. Then the first cause is by definition P. P is by definition the first. That's how definitions work.
No. P is by definition necessary reality, right? The necessary reality is the first cause.
Yeah, those are the same thing. Those will all be P. Those are all the same thing.
Oh, okay. Well, so that might be a disagreement. So a first cause has to be necessary.
Yes, let's grant that first of all first.
Okay, well, I'm not granting that. That's what I'm saying. I was trying to make sure I'm understanding what you said.
Okay, so there's a necessary reality. It
Yes.
created the first cause, and that's P.
Yes. Okay.
Nowhere in that statement does consciousness exist. Consciousness is not one of the premises in that statement.
So, okay, sure, but we're saying that that's synonymous with a consciousness.
If you say that's synonymous with consciousness, you're just saying P is P. So you've still added nothing in there to give me a belief consciousness.
So being a first cause is not synonymous nor entails necessity. It's in this concept so far, because you said sure. So it doesn't entail necessity. So we have other reasons to think it's necessary that we're agreeing on. Okay. So it's necessary, and now this is an extra step. It's the first cause. So those aren't synonymous. Unless you want to say they are, then we're going to have to rewind and...
No, that's fine. We can say there's necessary and first... Yeah, okay. That's P. Okay. It's necessary and it's the first cause. Two separate properties.
I would be typing a lot of this, but I'm also trying to think, and I'm not very good at that. So thinking and typing at the same time, it sounds weird, but thinking about different things. So with that, we're saying that if it's a first cause, the only thing, as far as we're describing here, that's first causes are minds.
No, that's never in there.
Well, that's our evidence we're offering. So we're saying evidence.
Wait. Which part? There was no evidence there. All you just said was defined it. You said P is P.
No, P is necessary.
Yes.
Here,
P is the necessary first cause. It's necessary.
P has a property, right? Which we have independent reasons for believing. So we have an independent reason for believing P exists. Then we have reasons separate from that for believing that P is the first cause, because they're not synonymous.
So again, stop. P is the necessary, and P is the first cause. It has these two properties. Neither of those entail consciousness. So where is the consciousness?
Okay. Let me go from there. So P is necessary. So it's not that it has a property. Well, I mean, sure, I guess wait.
P is necessary and P is the first cause. It has those two properties. Whatever this is, how propositions work.
I'm giving an if conditional. So if P is first cause, P has consciousness. That's my next step. Now you can just disagree with that. We can talk about it.
Again, that's just P. That's just definitional. Anything that is definitional is just imaginary. So that doesn't work. If P is the first cause, then P is a dog.
Okay. Let me try to say it a different way then. So if it ends up being true, but you don't have to necessarily grant it yourself, but if it ends up being true in this regime we're imagining right now, if it's the case that being a first cause is identical with a volition, and we agreed earlier that volition is only a property of minds, what's the problem that you have with what I just said?
Well, no, if the first cause is necessarily volitional, then you would be correct. It's just, but I can say if the first cause is a dog, then I would be correct.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So that's the point, is that you haven't given any evidence here, because all of that's still imaginary. You need to show.
Well, I'm saying that if you grant what I said, which I mean you're not going to, but if you grant what I said, then yes, I'm not granting the dog part. So
right.
But I am granting this.
Right. So that's the thing, is that you haven't presented any evidence, just like I haven't. So you want to define the first cause as necessarily being volitional.
Well, I'm not. It's not that I'm not granting what you said because you didn't have evidence. I'm just not I'm not granting what you said because I don't think it's meaningfully different. Or if it is meaningfully different, then you're not going to imply what you just said. It's like you're just not going to have it both ways.
What? No, I'm literally saying a physical dog is by definition the first cause of the universe, and only a physical dog. I mean,
if I press you on it, you're going to reduce the properties of this to describe the same thing I am. So
I'm literally not going to do anything. I'm saying it's literally a physical dog, and that is it. So go ahead and try and press me and try and get me rid of it.
Let's go down this route then.
Go
So
for
what
it.
is physical dog?
Physical dog.
Okay, I mean, give me the essential properties of physical
Like
dog.
DNA, cells.
So it's made of atoms, right?
Yeah.
It's made of atoms, right?
Yep.
Did this cause all atoms?
Yep.
Okay. So explain to me what that would imply.
No idea. Don't care. It's just a physical dog. I'm just defining it to be this way.
Okay. I mean, sure. I mean, I can go with that.
Well, that's the point. So I presented no evidence here. What you're doing is you're going down a route and saying, so now we have a reason to believe that there's going to be a mind because a mind can do these things, whereas atoms can't. That would be evidence. Defining it isn't evidence because I can define it as a dog.
Maybe, if I understand your question, maybe your question is why should I think that only minds can be first causes?
Right. Yes. Why?
We already went down that section, but I'm going to try again because I probably got lost in the intermediary conversation. Because I'm going to clip this video and show where I tried to do that, but I'm going to try again.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to rewind all the thoughts. So why think the mind has this first causation? Because I'm understanding first causation as being a volition. So if you're asking me why I think that's a volition, that is the essential concept to us. And the reason we think that is because our fundamental, when we broke down consciousness, awareness, qualia, we experienced that in ourselves. So we're able to recognize that we have volitions in a sense that we're minds, and that other things that don't have this phenomena does not. And so we recognize that terminating with us. And now I know you're going to disagree with this because you're going to break it down into physics point, but in terms of this, I guess, regime I'm explaining, we're able to recognize that about the other part we already agree with, which is the necessary reality. That's the first cause. So that's the reason we're saying, okay, I experienced this. I know I'm having volitions in this quality sense, in this properly basic sense. And it terminates with me at the first cause, as far as we're understanding first causation, which maybe that's what we have to get into. And then we're seeing that here. So that this essential property, we see that there. Like, you don't necessarily have to see that all. It's not like everyone will say, okay, there is a first cause to everything, because I don't think that's immediately obvious until you break it down and explain it. So when we say, okay, now that I realize that's the case, I can infer from there, from what I just explained logically, that it's also conscious like I am. But the details of that, we can also, for other reasons that we've already went over a little bit, that it might not necessarily have all the same other macro properties I have.
So again, your argument,
a lot of the same stuff already.
Your argument is that we have first causes in our brain from free will or whatever, and we know the universe is a first cause. Therefore, we can conclude that the universe has a conscious mind.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to put in some premises, sure. So, I mean, so the thing I just described about us would be an evidence for a premise. It wouldn't really be a premise. So I'll give you the premises, and then we can go over like the individual reasons to believe the premises.
Right.
So I guess first premise, and I'm thinking of this off the spot, so it might not sound as precise as it probably would be if I sat down and wrote it out. But premise one would be first causations are volitions.
No. That's a crap. So start with this. It seems like this. Premise one, we have first causes in our volitions or minds, or whatever.
Let me. So you're probably right. I just might have a better way to word it. So premise one is we have volitions which we experience as first causes within our minds. Sure.
That's two premises. So we have first causes in our minds.
We have
our volitions.
So we have volitions.
We have volitions. We have volitions.
Volitions as being for we can separate those into two premises. Sure. So we have volitions. Premise one. Premise two. We experience volitions as
our
being
volitions are first causes. Our volitions are first causes.
Well, that might be a different premise. So what I said, you can tell me why you might not like this, but
you said volitions and first causes are synonymous. Anything that has a volition is a first cause, right?
Yeah, we can go with that.
So it's volitions are first causes.
Okay, yeah. Let's just go with that. That sounds simpler.
Okay. So and then the universe, or reality or whatever, the universe has a first cause.
Okay.
Conclusion: the universe has a mind or a volition. The universe was caused by a volition.
Okay. So are you going to object to like equivocation, or what are you going to try to object to here?
I just wrote it down. I'm thinking about it.
Okay,
so we have volitions. Volitions are first causes. Okay, the first thing is no, volitions are not first causes. So that would be, I would grant premise one, reject premise two.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where we've been at.
premise 3, the universe has, I can grant, well, no, I would actually, because premise 3 would be, even if the universe has a first cause, reality doesn't. So the universe began at the Big Bang. That's granted. But
Or
reality doesn't have a first cause because reality
is caused by something. Like the temporal nature of it, we don't really have to get
right,
into.
right. Well, no. So I'm thinking like there is a necessary thing.
Mhm.
The necessary thing doesn't have a first cause.
Right.
So
we're on the same page there.
and the necessary thing caused all the other stuff, which means it doesn't actually need to be a mind.
Well, okay. Well, I didn't say it caused all the other stuff. I don't want to say saying that.
The contingent stuff, whatever. Yeah.
It's the cause of the sort of macro contingent.
The necessary thing is the cause of the contingent.
I'm not going to say. Obviously, I wouldn't say that it caused other volitions because that'd be contradiction.
So let me see if I can try to show you why this does not work at all.
And if at any point, if we don't finish and you're still in the middle of doing that, you can also send me a written critique, and if we want to do a follow-up later, because I know we're going on kind of long here.
So I can say dogs have fur. Fur are the first causes. The universe has a first cause. Therefore, the universe is made of fur.
Okay, is that your critique? Because I can.
Yeah, essentially it's the same thing. I mean, we can take premise 2 and premise 1, just change it to anything we want and say, okay, we can literally change them to anything we want.
Okay, I mean, again, that comes down to this, like we're just using different words.
No. So the words don't matter. It's the ontology. I'm saying there is a different ontological thing. Like we have volitions, dogs have fur. Those are two
volitions in.
No. I'm granting your definition of volitions. You can just pick any other thing you want. Like if I said dogs are cats. Okay. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not using the words here. I'm literally saying a dog is a cat. Clearly that's false. It doesn't work. Dogs are not cats. But I can say it. I can put the words next to one another.
Right? Okay. Is the point that volitions aren't first causes? Is that where you're going with this?
Sort of. So I'm saying that when we list,
make sure I'm understanding.
So I'm saying that when we list these things, like when we list volitions are first causes, like prove it.
Prove it. Okay. So if I'm saying like the definition of a volition, you want me to prove that?
Anything if you involve definitions doesn't work. So it can't be the definition. You got to prove it.
I guess what you're asking me to prove is first causes.
Yep.
So I'm saying that. Okay.
Well, no, not first causes. I can grant first causes, but you have to prove volition is a first cause.
I mean, so if I'm defining it that way, that's
not evidence. I can define a dog as a first cause. There's no evidence.
Yeah, it's like asking me to define a bachelor's not married. Like it doesn't make sense.
Well, no. I mean, like I can say a bachelor is a married man. I can define a bachelor as a married man, but that doesn't work. So you can define it any way you want. The point is that you have to show that your definition corresponds to reality and isn't just made up in your head. That's what I'm asking. Show that your definition isn't just made up in your head and corresponds to reality. First causes are things that exist in reality. Volitions are things that exist in our head. So you have to show that these two, there's a connection here. They're not just made up.
That's not what I'm saying volitions are, though. So we're just having.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. That's not the point. So you are claiming volitions are first causes. First causes exist like dogs. They are a thing in reality. They are not just made up in our head, right? As we grant the universe or reality has a first cause, or the contingent reality has a first cause. So it exists in reality. It's not just in our imagination. Now you have to show that volitions are those things. If you can't do it, you have no evidence.
So your
defining them doesn't work.
Your description there, I'm not sure I'm going with. So when you say first causes are things out in reality, like a dog is, that's not what
Again, physical reality doesn't matter here. We're just saying it's not imaginary. Is it imaginary?
Whether it exists in reality, first causes are just descriptions of things that happen. So like causes, as we're describing them, causes, whether they're physical or not, are real things in reality. And the first causes would just be that first thing that happens. And what I'm saying is like that production or that thing would be a volition. That's when I
and that's what I'm saying. Demonstrate it. So there was a first cause that exists in reality. We know there was a first cause.
I'm not saying it's not like it's a claim of an extra property, because I'm really not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that there's some extra part to this first cause called a volition. Like this whole time I haven't been trying to do that. I'm saying is when we arrive at volitions as being a thing in reality, which is a part of our experience, the qualia.
Yes, you are, because you're saying volitions require minds. Like we have volitions, and you're saying volitions require minds. But the first cause,
our belief that volitions are our first causes is the properly basic belief that we do it ourselves.
Properly basic,
or
no.
call it.
No, because again, volitions and minds are not the same thing.
I didn't say they were the same thing. I'm saying
So that's not how properly basic works. But again, so the fact that we have minds and we have volitions, and we're going to call that a first cause of some kind, does not necessarily mean the universe's first cause is caused by minds. It's composition division fallacy.
Say it again. I want to make sure I heard you right.
It's like, I can push stuff over. That cup fell over, therefore it was pushed by a person. Clearly not. It could have been pushed by the wind. Right?
No, I mean, say the words you just said again.
I don't remember what the words I said again.
That's okay. I do that a lot.
So if I knock over a cup and say, "Oh, look, I knocked over a cup," and then we see a cup knocked over, like, "Oh, that must have been done by a person." Clearly, that doesn't work because there's lots of other things that could knock over the cup. So if we want to say our volitions are first causes, and the universe caused the first cause, therefore a mind did it, clearly not the case.
Well, the steps there that you're doing isn't representing what I said very well, and that might be my fault. But the point is that the reason we believe, so obviously we're experiencing ourselves, and this is that what I said, the properly basic thing. We just have the immediate experience of ourselves existing and having consciousness.
That's not what properly basic means, but okay.
Okay, then, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So we experience ourselves.
So, yeah, we experience ourselves, and we believe the truth of these experiences, not based on some other fundamental evidence, but because of the experience. Right? Are you following that?
Yeah.
That's what I meant by properly basic. But if you're saying there's more, I mean, we don't have to call it that, whatever. But that is where I'm deriving the concept of volitions being first causes.
Right. I got that part.
Okay. All right. So from that, so we've got volitions being first causes.
Sure.
It stops at us. We see that there's a first cause to like the contingent universe. Are you following me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So you have any objections so far?
Yes, but keep going.
Okay, let's go back. No, only this matters because I think it's a communication problem. So
you claim that our experience is a first cause. Prove it. Because you can't just say it. You can't call it properly basic. I can call anything properly basic I want because it's pretty arbitrary and doesn't work. But that's not evidence.
Okay, let me start over. So the experience of ourselves, are you asking me to prove that?
No, I grant that part. We have experience.
Okay, that part. So I'm saying
grant it's a first cause. What
I'm saying that experience, we're experiencing that and recognizing the description of what a first cause is, which you said
that's the part. No, that's the part. No. So the description of what a first cause is and our experience, there's no connection there. Where's the connection there?
Okay, so if we're brushing over a few things, which I think is probably a good idea, like necessary reality and first causation. We're assuming we're agreeing with these concepts. So when I say we're experiencing ourselves and we're experiencing that we exist, we have that the world exists or whatever, and our will, our consciousness is a part of that.
Yep.
We're saying that we're recognizing that reality. We, as the people that are believing this, are recognizing that reality as stopping with us. That's what we mean by when we say it's a first causation with us.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let me try to use other words. So the experience that is like the fundamental, that doesn't have like further proofs or other things that prove it true other than us experiencing it. The volition or the conscious will is a part of that. And the first causation concept that we haven't explicitly defined yet because we thought we assumed we agreed on it is what we're experiencing. We're recognizing that concept is a part of that experience.
Well, I agree first cause is for the universe, but when you say a first cause in a mind, there's no connection to those two things. Right?
Well, I'm getting to that for a second. So what I just said, do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, you've made no connection between a first cause and a mind. We have experience, yes.
Well, no, I mean, the words I just said, maybe I'll try to say it again. I'm trying to see if you're having a problem with what I just said. So we have the fundamental experience of ourselves and everything, and us being conscious, having a will, being person or whatever, having a mind is a part of that.
Yep.
And recognizing that the first causation concept. What? You want me to define? We want to go into that? Is that?
I have no idea what you're saying. Recognizing that the first. Okay. So yes, we exist. We have minds. What is it? How does this fit into the premises?
Okay, then I'm saying we're recognizing this is the evidence for why I think this is what it is. That experience, we're able to infer from that experience that experience is a first cause.
I can recognize that experience is a square circle. Like what? That doesn't make any sense.
Are you having trouble with my concept of first causation? Do we want to go into that?
How does it relate to a mind? Like I can say, okay, we have experience. We have minds.
We already us being a mind is a fundamental belief. So that's not like
right.
That's not the inference. The inference is that
How does that a first cause? How does that in any way relate to anything that is a first cause?
So the what I'm saying is we're experiencing our wills as fitting the description of what is true about a first cause.
Which is what?
Okay, so we need to get in first cause. I think that like that's where we're not making progress. So what do you understand a first cause to be?
The first cause.
I mean,
the cause that was first.
If someone didn't have any understand, like there's like I don't know what that is, like completely at all, without using the same words, the internal language, like how would you try best explain it to them?
I would say the origin of space and time.
I mean, do you really think that would help? Like, I mean, if it's just being honest, like, okay, maybe I need to ask it another way. So I think we agree that it's the first of the causes, and it maybe in trying to gather the words for explaining the self experience.
Yeah. So like from my perspective,
that we begin the causal chain of the volition, will, or whatever.
So from my perspective, there can only be one first cause. There cannot be a class of first causes. There is only one first cause, and it is the cause for all other possible causes.
I see what you're saying with that, and I mentioned earlier that we disagreed on that, but in our concept of the free will, obviously. But when I say first, I don't mean first above literally everything. We're talking about a specific causal chain. So, and obviously that evokes other macro effects, but I'm talking specifically in the libertarian free will model that I know you don't agree with, but individual agents, even that aren't God, have separate wills from God, obviously, or from the ultimate reality.
Okay.
And those free wills we're defining it that way specifically as the wills are first causes of causal chains from that agent that's not God or other agents.
Okay, that doesn't
so when they say first cause, you said it doesn't help. Okay, hold on. So when we say first cause,
so like if I said it this way, suppose there's a row of dominoes and I knock them over, then 6 dominoes, we go 6 dominoes down. We're going to start at this domino. This domino is the first cause of the next domino. Even though
okay. So if we want to use a more simplified version, yeah, let's use dominoes. So if I have a domino, the first domino in this analogy would be the first cause, sure. So the first domino would be the first cause, but you have just different rows of dominoes with first dominoes that there aren't connected.
Right.
Does that help a little bit in what I'm trying to explain?
Well, no. The question is that when you say we have a first cause,
okay.
Like, well, so no, we were caused by other things. Like everything about us was caused by other things.
You could say we are either the first or one of the rows of the dominoes, right? So we're just one of several domino rows. And the experiential evidence that I was trying to grant was that we have an experience that our volitions and what we're experiencing that as being, whether you want to call it properly basic or not, is
that's the question. That's the question.
We are first dominoing, I guess you could say, in effect.
How do you get to the point that our experience is a first dominoing?
So that point, if I'm understanding your question right, that point was the immediate experience.
You can't immediately experience your first domino. You can only experience the dominoes after you.
Well, I think we can. I think we can experience the fact that we are the first initial point of our will. I think that we have a sort of
how so? That's the evidence I'm asking for. How do you do that?
I mean, the same way we would have any essential experiential belief, the same way we'd experience sense data or whatever, or the past. Like, I think we just experience it. We don't have some sort of outside of that verification method. We just immediately experience it. And that's what I referred to as properly basic. But
how many numbers am I holding up?
Holding up 2.
You can see me. Okay, now do that for free will. Go.
Okay, well, I mean, it's no more different than the fact that...
you said it was just like all the other ones. I just demonstrated one. Go. Come on.
Yeah, so... But when I say I can see it, that's a like sort of, I guess you call it a macrocosm of other phenomenon that's going back to just an immediate experience of those things. Like I'm experiencing sight. So when I say I see it, the seeing is a description of a larger scale thing that I am just experiencing. So I'm experiencing the two.
Right. So the question is how do we experience free will? Because I don't experience any free will.
Well, I didn't say you did. I mean, that's another thing is not everyone experiences seeing two things. And sure, yeah, you can explain that specific example of problems with the sense data, but that's still true about them not having experience. They could have no concept of what it means to see two things.
Right. So we can tell the difference. We can demonstrate some people have vision and some people don't. But
yeah, in that example,
free will, we get nothing. There's no evidence of free will. You're just saying that we experience it, but we don't.
Okay, well, so now here's where I think you could have a good objection, is that the sort of model, I guess, that most people use in the layman's terms of this whole properly basic justification is that if you have some reason to believe it's false, then you aren't justified in believing it. And so here's why I think you could have a good objection, which is that you could give your argument against free will and say, well, since we know that that's not actually a thing, you're not justified in believing it, similar to how you might say, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that we have reasons to believe that the blind person isn't justified believing that there aren't two things when you hold up two fingers. So I think that's right. You could go. Now that's a whole other conversation, which I'm willing to have, but I'm granting that there aren't good defeaters for the people who experienced and properly understood the first domino volition thing.
People experience delusions. That's a defeater.
Yeah, but we're going to agree with this. But the reason that those delusions are the reason there are defeaters, that they are delusions. That's a conclusion. I'm saying don't exist for free will.
I just gave one. People experience delusion. So you can say you experience free will. That's just a delusion.
Okay, so the fact that an experience is delusion is a conclusion of a defeater. So we have other reasons to believe that what their experience is a delusion. So we're going to agree with that.
Anything you experience could be a delusion other than your experience itself. Therefore, if you think you experience free will, that could be a delusion.
So anything you experience could be a delusion other than experience itself. Explain that part to me.
Like, even if I think I don't exist, I still necessarily exist to have the belief. So I must have experience necessarily, no matter what. Anything I'm experiencing, I must have some kind of experience. I can't think I exist and be wrong.
Yeah, I agree with the Cartesian view of
right.
Yeah,
free will isn't like that. Free will, there's nowhere in there.
Well, so I mean, I think it is, but here's
how
why.
So? That's the how so.
Yeah. So when you hold up the two fingers, you're experiencing that total perception. Where we can describe the macro levels of light and vision, whatever. But the ultimate experience itself is justified to still believe in. Like, you're going to keep believing it because you don't have something else telling you that you shouldn't. So, for example, the blind person that can't see too might have other sense data like ears or hearing. And the composite information input they're getting from all the other people that can see things are telling them that they should be able to, and there's something wrong with them. So that composite's a defeater.
Okay, but there's no experience of free will there. So where is the experience of free will?
So I'm saying people, I know you don't, but I'm saying that there's a claim of experience of free will.
Right.
Just like there's a claim of experience of vision.
Right.
And the people that experience free will are saying that they don't accept the defeaters presented against that experience.
Right,
just
but that's a burden of proof fallacy. You have to present evidence for it. You can't accept the defeaters against it. So how do you? Because for vision or any of the senses, I can demonstrate evidence to show those things.
Well, not without being circular. You can't though. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I can. What do you mean?
So anything you demonstrate to prove your vision is going to depend upon the essential experience of that anyway. Just like that. Okay.
No.
How about before I proceed? What are the differences on what you're understanding as the properly basic model that you're saying I'm missing?
Well, I reject the properly basic model completely. So,
okay.
Because there's no such thing as a properly basic belief. It's completely false.
Okay,
but that's
That's fine. I mean, sure. I mean, that's another. Just we're going to disagree on that. We can go down that, which maybe we should.
Well, like most philosophers, I reject Plantinga's entire basis of his epistemology.
Reformed epistemology. I've kind of figured that out now.
But that's irrelevant to the argument here. So. The argument here is that...
So you can reject it, sure, but I mean, that's the justification being presented.
Well, then I can just say it's not evidence because clearly it doesn't work.
I mean, okay, yeah, that's fine.
But that's the question, is that if all your evidence is that what you're going to claim is properly basic, I can claim green unicorns are properly basic, and then I have evidence of green unicorns. So that methodology does not work as evidence because it doesn't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real.
And just for the sake of maybe the conversation in the audience, by evidence you mean reasons to believe, right? Just by belief.
Way to differentiate between imaginary and real.
But that would be the same thing I said too.
Pretty much.
Okay, sure. So yeah, we're just going to disagree on that. And I think there are reasons to not believe what you just said that aren't comparable to what I did. But for whoever's watching, that's the difference. I think is that you can boil it down to Plantinga's Reformed epistemology, which I find coherent enough, but. I wasn't going to get into his entire thesis on it, but I think that's what it does boil down to. Is it's just a different epistemic standard, and they accept properly basic belief as a justified form of believing things that are experienced without what they see as things that defeat it. And from there, if whoever's been watching can follow everything else that we've kind of gone in as not perfectly straight line, but a line, is when you compile up to what I explained. I think that's the essential component of theism, which goes to other things. But I was trying to keep it as concise as I could.
Right. So yeah, we can say that's obviously false because I can claim anything is properly basic. There's no way to differentiate between what's properly basic and what's not. It's a completely arbitrary metric. Green, purple unicorns are properly basic.
I think there's ways to differentiate, but
Well, that's actually, if you just Google
disagree.
Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy properly basic, that's one of the major problems of why most
Yeah, I
philosophers
mean,
are accepted.
I'm not saying none of
So
this is not contentious. It's not like everyone, like I said, it's not compelling. Not everyone's going to believe it, but I do think that this is the justification provided. I find it persuasive. Me, like, so I'm giving you me, and I
right,
like to think I'm giving you what, if pressed, most theists would say, yes, this is it. They just might not explain it the same way.
right, and so I'm saying you're using an imaginary criterion to try and show things aren't imaginary.
I mean, so yeah, you can charge with that, but we can charge with, like, I can charge that against verification predictions.
Well, verification and predictions is imaginary criterion. We are using that imaginary criterion to differentiate because we have a reference point of reality. That's the difference, is that you don't have a reference point of reality. We do.
Well, so the experience, the person defending the Reformed epistemology it clearly says they do, because they're experiencing reality. Like, that's what they're saying. And so your experience of reality is verifying a prediction, which is also rooted in experience. And they're saying, yes, that same experience, we have all these other things. And they would probably hold similar, I mean, I'd like to think, they'd probably hold similar falsification criteria, maybe not in all cases, but the falsification criteria used in the sort of the properly basic model would still be there. They're just not, they're saying that there isn't one of those for any of the ones that we probably agree are true, plus free will, and then for some people, God's actual reality, which I haven't argued for in this video, but
right. But so again, all I have to do is show that that criterion can't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. So if I claim, I mean, I've gone through properly basic a long time. It's been refuted completely because I believe it's the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy where they go through and they say, ask Plantinga, what is it that determines what a properly basic belief is? And he said it's cultural. So the cultural belief in voodoo would count as a properly basic belief.
yeah, sure, okay, yeah, because it would. Now, we wouldn't believe it because we believe there are defeaters for it, just like you believe there are defeaters.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's not whether or not you particularly believe it. It's can this methodology of assigning properly basic things differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real? And if it can be used to identify an imaginary thing like voodoo as a real thing, then we know that criterion doesn't work.
Well, when you say we know, I know you're referring to the people that are holding to this, but like your description at the beginning of, like, assume there isn't people and just like objectively true or false. Yes, there is objective truth.
Yeah, there's absolutely objective truth.
I said that. So there's objective truth, but the questions that we're addressing and the way we're addressing it is what's reasonable to believe is true. And so that's the debated point.
Right.
And when we give arguments and evidence, like that, the point is not like someone somewhere can say this is true and we're asking them. It's like we're giving the methodologies on why we come to beliefs that clearly people believe in. There's clearly quite a few that the parodies try to address that people don't believe. And I think there's a video you had, I saw part of it, about Flying Spaghetti Monster, but I didn't want to redo that video. And the reasons that we're presenting, the reason criteria, obviously you're not going to agree with it. You're going to say, when you say we can show, I know you believe that that's part of the objective truth, just the other people don't. And that's why it's important when I say I don't think it's compelling. And even though there's probably not a single proposition that's maybe compelled by everybody, I would like to think the Cartesian view of the self is, even if some people say it doesn't.
All right, I would agree with that. But remember my example of the Magic 8 Ball? If I said I believe leprechauns are real because a Magic 8 Ball told me, we can show that's false because the methodology can't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real.
Yeah, I agree.
Properly basic beliefs are the same as the Magic 8 Ball. And it's been demonstrated to the satisfaction of everybody because they literally asked Plantinga, what is the criterion for what determines a properly basic belief? Is it cultural? And gave a bunch of examples. He said yes. And the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy section 7, where it goes through this.
I'm not going to purely regurgitate Plantinga, but so what? And I think he in other contexts said this, that a properly basic belief, if we're saying like the criteria of what makes it that, is a belief that can't be inferred from outside information. So it's like, let me make sure I'm explaining this properly. It's not built upon further foundations of information. It's the immediate experience of whatever it is that you're believing is real.
All right. Well, that's the problem, is that when you try to go into what that means, it fails because it can be anything like voodoo.
Well, so no, okay, so you're right. You're right about that, and even the further other examples we gave about like holding up your hands and other sense data, and someone that might have certain physical problems will perceive information and light differently. The whole "is your red same as my red" problem, like that's obviously true what you're saying, and culturally speaking, they believe that their experiences are correctly described by what they're calling voodoo and other things. But the objective reality that we are experiencing, and if we're able to infer other things about it correctly, that's the matter of debate, is whether or not these methods.
Right. So my argument is that we have voodoo and we have free will. Which one is right and which one is wrong?
So I think free will's right, voodoo's wrong. Okay.
No evidence. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking for evidence.
Like, that's another way of saying the same thing. If I give you evidence, if I say this is the evidence, that's also saying I believe this is the evidence. Like,
no, I know what you believe. I'm asking for the evidence. Your belief doesn't help me. I want to know the evidence.
So I think another way to explain this. Are you familiar with what I just explained? That is your red the same as my red thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So the qualia itself, the immediate experience, has an objective reality. I think we're going to agree on this. We're trying to experience reality, and when we describe it, not everyone's going to. I don't think everyone perfectly experiences the same way. At least we can agree on sense data. Now, what we'll probably agree on from there is that sense data is largely agreed upon, and then that the cases that disagree are, and at least if we're talking scientifically, the cases that disagree have some kind of disability or deformity on why that would be the case. Like, we can explain that. I think we're actually going to agree on all those points.
Yep.
But the experience itself is still foundational.
Right.
Like not going to go further than that.
Yep.
So we're experiencing reality. I think we granted this earlier in the talk. So from there's other things that people are claiming, like your voodoo or God or religions, Holy Spirit, whatever, free will. So there's other things people are claiming that they're experiencing. The reasons we're going to reject the outside corner cases of sense data, those what might be called defeaters, the people that are defending their other beliefs don't believe that they're sufficient defeaters, and that's really where the conversation should focus. So I think from there, I think it would be profitable, because it's getting a little late for me, if you can give me a written critique from there and other things you want to include, and then if you want to someday, we can follow up on that so I can read it.
Yeah. So here's my main argument: is that properly basic beliefs does not work as a criterion, because anybody can, like, people have different properly basic beliefs that are mutually exclusive, and we have no way to differentiate which ones are real and which ones are imaginary. We know some are imaginary, so that methodology fails.
I think we have ways of distinguishing, and I think largely we're going to agree on a lot of those methods. We're just disagreeing on this specific one, and we'd probably disagree on a few others, but in this talk, we're disagreeing on this specific one.
Well, that's my thing, is this specific one, properly basic beliefs, can't differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real, because there are mutually exclusive ideas that both qualify equally as properly basic beliefs, and they can't both be true. So without that criteria, it doesn't work. We know that criteria doesn't work, just like the magic 8-ball doesn't work.
Well, the defeated reason I gave works clearly. Like, we can know that these people specifically aren't experiencing the reality, and there's a reason why we're agreeing on that and they're not. So there's clearly
well, no, I'm disagreeing with you and the voodoo. Free will and voodoo are equally as false.
I know, but you're saying that you're agreeing with me on the sense perspective point.
Right. I think therefore I am, but then the free will and the voodoo are equally false.
I'm sorry, the physical sense, like the blind people, for example. So there are blind people, and if we never went out of our way to explain that they're blind,
right,
their reality would be obviously completely different.
Yeah, so sense experience is verifiable. We do have ways to show sense experience is not imaginary and is real, but we don't have ways to show free will or voodoo, because those are both equally as unjustified.
We're going a little fast. So we're agreeing on that point. Now you went the next step and says we have ways to show that sense data is real.
Yeah,
I agree. What I'm saying is the belief that it is real starts with the experience, and then we can remove the defeaters or say that there are none to justify it.
Well, so again, the defeaters don't matter here. Like, it's a burden of proof fallacy. You don't believe something until you have defeaters. It's the other way around. It's imaginary until demonstrated otherwise, not real until demonstrated and not imaginary.
The demonstration is going to be experienced, so it's still going to come down to the experience. And I know you're rejecting that is what I think is the essential quality that maybe in the context.
Oh yeah. So one of Plantinga's arguments is you can believe something until it has defeaters. That is just a straight up burden of proof fallacy. We know that doesn't work.
Well, okay, that's a little bit of a oversimplification. It's you're only believing, but the reason I bring that up is because the thing you're believing isn't just anything. It's specifically things that are.
Well, no, that's the part I'm saying. It is literally anything. It applies to voodoo. It applies to magic fairies. It applies to great pumpkins. It applies to literally anything. That's the objection to the properly basic, is that it applies to anything. It's culturally determined. It's arbitrary. It applies to literally anything.
I I'll read the quote, but I really don't think that's what I meant.
Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Section 7, Objections to Reformed Epistemology.
Yeah, there's other contexts where he's gone into details and other quotes that I could find. And
please do, because this pretty much debunks all of the properly basic stuff in like one fell swoop and shows it doesn't work. So if you can show that this is incorrect or something, please do, because it kind of debunks all of that as evidence.
Okay, so I'll finish up with my description here, and then if we ever come back, I can give you the information I'm referring to. But the experience itself, it's not any belief. When you refer to it as being cultural, it's beliefs that aren't further based on other information. Like I don't believe that space-time is curved because I experienced that. Like I just don't. I think that's a pretty clear perception. That is the conclusion of large amounts of other information and inferences that I've derived that did start with fundamental experiences, whether it be sense data or not. And that's what I believe Plantinga is talking about. Now, I'll follow back up with that. I'll check out, because I've read the work once, and I mostly just talked about it with other people. And I've seen a few interviews. I'm not like a hardcore Plantinga person, but I mean, as far as that concept makes sense to me, I do go along with it. But I'll end it with that. If you want to send me the written critique to, I guess, the best version of what we talked about and try to formulate premises, and that last part about properly basic belief, we can follow up again and continue.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy for, what is it? I think it's Reformed Epistemology is the actual page. Yeah, it's Reformed Epistemology. And you go down to a segment where it says Linda Zagzebski, I hope that's pronounced right, has offered an objection to like this one. She claims that Reformed Epistemology has failed to meet the blah, blah, blah. If a belief is rational, it's rationally recognized in principle by rational persons in other cultures. And this is where it goes into the whole segment about why it doesn't work.
Okay, sure. Send that to me. I'll juxtapose it with other places I've seen Plantinga explain it and go in detail.
Sure.
And obviously, it's not. I'm not going to hinge all of that on whether or not Plantinga explains it that way, because that's how I was explaining it in this particular argument. But
well, as far as I know, every version faces that problem. There isn't properly basic just doesn't work as an idea.
Yeah, that might be a better part to go into more in another video. And I might check out because you said you had videos about it. I'll probably check out just to make sure I don't try to regurgitate too much of that. I want to advance it.
Okay.
So I probably, is that it really early, or do you want to just send me the link? It'll be easier to find.
Yeah, I could send you a link. It's a pretty short link. It's just Google.
Who is the person you talked with about it? Is it in the title of your video?
Oh, probably Ben Arbor.
Ben Arbor. Okay. Is that I'm sure you've touched on it before in other topics, but was that the only video where it was like exhaustive on that?
Yeah, I think that was specifically about like the ontological argument. And
I'll check out that one, because if we follow back up and talk more about that, I want to do my best not to just regurgitate a lot of the same information.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So yeah, send me that. And I mean, I'd love to keep talking, obviously, but it's getting late for me.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Me too.
So,
I sent you the link in Twitter.
Cool.
All right, I'm gonna go eat some dinner. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, me too. All right, cool. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yep. See ya.